Good evening, everyone. Welcome on another edition of the Gray Area. My name is Mr. Bennett. I am joined by my co-pilot and partner, Grooming and Reviews, aka the Ghost of Sparta, aka by his Greek name, Paniotis. I gotta say it from here. I gotta say it with with
Yeah,
my
put like
throat.
the oomph into it, right?
Paniotis. Before we send them out to battle with the other Spartans or whatnot, it's like Paniotis, you must come back successful from this battle. Or else all is doomed and lost. We're counting on you, Paniotis. So good to be here with you guys tonight on the Sunday edition of the Gray Area. I know Sunday night folks are getting ready for work. You had a long weekend. Hope you had an enjoyable weekend. I'm a little bit depressed because this is the first full weekend without football, without the NFL. So I'm going through a little bit of withdrawal here, waiting for the combine and whatnot to get started. So it's a pretty dull weekend in that regard for me. But still, certainly good to be here with you all this evening. Thank you for spending some time with us. I know usually we have guys trickle in later on, but we just want to salute those who want to hang out in this conversation. So I just want to acknowledge some of the chat. So again, BMU, thank you always for your support. Black David, for everything that you do for us on the back end. You hold us down and keep things running. So we appreciate you so much for what we're doing. And of course, the Queen is in the house. Lady Navoa, who is all over these spaces. Yes, yes, salute the Queen because she's always giving us love in the spaces. She supports, in so many ways. She keeps the chat moving. Mrs. She said, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Good to have you here, and always love your perspective with Mr. He said on relationship issues, and of course, Miss Stacy B79 always hanging out with us on these shows as well. Thank you for your
Oh, we
support.
got
And my
Kira
man,
Popper.
salute to my 7B brother Trey Ferg. I appreciate you, my brother, always supporting us in these spaces and the perspective that you give to everything. My man has done so much with teens and youth over the years and sports, and he does so much to help young people, and he's still pushing the message. And I'll be checking out his biceps. He still can kick your butt. So don't, my man's in his 50s, but don't think he won't, put you on the carpet if he needs to. So again, salute to my brother, Trey Ferg, for hanging out and rocking out with us this evening. And just looking forward to another uh, uh, helpful and useful conversation. Again, the purpose of this great area show is you have people from different worlds. So we have the Ghost of Sparta, okay, this Greek American white man who brings a perspective from both worlds. In fact, we're going to be talking about that tonight because he's actually a transplant in two different areas, and myself, a Black ADOS man, and hopefully tonight I'll explain a little bit more about what that means, and we just share our cultural perspectives, our upbringings, how our cultural upbringing has shaped our perspective on how we see the world. But we're also looking for exchange. We're looking for that gray area because at the end of the day, we're human beings, and we want to have useful conversation that lets us know that we're all connected, we're all united, and a lot of the things that we bicker over really aren't as big a deal as we make them out to be. So in this search for understanding and mutual understanding, hopefully we can model something that others want to model, because there's so much tribalism that's going on right now, and people just need to really learn to embrace how to sit down and have a conversation and seek understanding, not to necessarily preach your message, but to seek mutual understanding so we can respect one another. So that's the purpose of the show, and we already got some ideas cooking up. I know next week's show I'm really looking forward to. That's going to be a show that's going to be covering religion, and we'll also more than likely we'll have one of our first major guests on. Peter, if you want to give us a preview of
Yeah.
what that show is going to be looking like.
So I'm gonna bring in one of the best people I know about religion, Father Costantino. He's around my age. He runs my church, very small church we are, but he has so much to offer. He came from a big city, Philly, actually, and he understands the youth, but he can understand where it came from. He can explain it a lot better than I could. I have questions on my own religion sometimes,
Right.
and I think a third party, a priest who is pretty funny, believe it or not. I just gotta watch my mouth only. But that's anyways, side note. He's tuning next week. Telling you, this is
Yeah,
one episode
yeah,
you do not want to miss.
I'm looking forward to an exchange because I've never
Mhm.
I know very little. I mean, I've been a Christian for over the last 30 years, and but I've never heard a lot or seen a lot as far as from the Orthodox faith. I know very little about it, so I'm looking forward to learning more about that Orthodox. And in particular, now one thing we do have as far as a gray area, again, this is the Greek Orthodox Church.
Hmm.
Yeah, Orthodox, you have the Russian Orthodox, you have the Greek
Correct.
Orthodox. I think they kind
Correct.
of all exist under the same umbrella. But
Correct.
the fact that he has to minister to an ethnic group. Now, I belong to what's called an African Methodist Episcopal Church, which again was founded, unfortunately, in many respects, it was founded, unfortunately, because of racism in the church. And so, we had to, they had to form a body in order to support believers, who came out of a Methodist tradition at the time. So I'm very interested in chopping it up with him and seeing about, how is it, how do you minister to the needs of a specific group of people? Because I think I saw some statistics that I think like over 90% of Greece is Greek Orthodox or something to that effect.
A little more actually. I would say
It's very
99.9%.
high. And
Yeah.
so again, what is it? Yeah.
I
Go
would
ahead.
say the people who are immigrants in Greece that we have from other people are Muslim. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the
Right.
only people. You have a very, very small percent, like a 1%, who are Greek Catholics, and it's a
Mm,
very small percentage. The one thing I do want to say about, I don't want to get too deep into it because I wanted to leave it for next week,
absolutely.
about the religion is, at one time we were all under one umbrella. It was separated
Yes.
at one time.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter what you believe. At least if you come back all, just, I think this is the gray area again, is believing in one God.
Yeah.
Christianity will get hit, goes straight
Yeah,
down
yeah,
the
we're
middle.
definitely gonna we're gonna have those intersections, but I'm
Yes.
like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to for as a from the Greek experience and
Mhm.
how a church has been able to be maintained over some time, and to keep the consistency over time. I mean, so
Yeah.
those are topics that hopefully we can get into. I want to treat it as a serious topic, but also again have some fun at the same time. Because again, if you can't even in your religion, if you can't laugh, if anything, be able to laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
That
The quick side
that's a
note I
bonus
do
too.
want to
Yeah.
say is, over in Europe, most people are Orthodox. On
Mhm.
this side of the world, most people are Christian.
Right,
So,
right.
this is I'm not sure what the numbers are, but that's the statistics. I definitely do know that for a fact.
Right, right, right. So, again, so tune in next week. We're definitely looking forward to a very informed and high level conversation, and really looking to chop it up. And again, we want this also to be a gateway because we want to entertain a new number of guests on their different ethnic perspectives. So again, we want this to be a safe space to have the conversation. This isn't a place where we're going to be beating people up or getting into arguments or whatnot. We want to have, really a place to really to bridge some gaps and create some understanding. So good again for everyone to be here with us tonight. Again, if you see scrolling at the bottom, if you would like, we would certainly appreciate your support. Support our cash apps or scrolling on the bottom. So again, any love that you want to send us, we so much appreciate it. For not, but more so, just you guys choosing to hang out with us tonight. So with that,
Yeah, definitely.
our topic for today is going to be an interesting one in that I'm going to have maybe not as much input into the conversation. I might be more the reporter. I might be more the interviewer in this case because Peter really has a unique story in that he's had to go back home. The title of today's show is Going Back Home, and he's had to do that twice in his life. In fact, we talked about this on one of the first shows that you have a condition, a condition when you were in school that you were diagnosed with because of all that transplanting. I don't know if you want to remind us again what
I
that
wouldn't
condition
call it
was.
that a condition.
Well,
I have
how they labeled it. I know they gave you some
they
title.
labeled it a disability, and that's my issue with the United States, to be honest with you, because every little
Mm,
thing you have, like, oh, he's hyper, it's a disability. He
yeah,
reads a little slow, that's a disability. He
right.
walks funny, that's a disability. He jumps too high, that's a disability. And
Mhm.
like, there's my disability. I'll say to that.
How
Very
is jumping
simple.
too? Hang on. How is jumping too high as a disability that can make you
And you know
millions
what?
of
In this
dollars?
country, anything
Give
is a
me, hey,
disability.
I'll take that. I'll take that disability in a heartbeat. Give me that
Yeah.
one. Jumping
Yeah.
too high, please. I'll be in the NBA making $30 million a year, so that'll work for me.
Um. So my disability is reading and spelling because I learned two languages at once.
Mm,
So when I was switching countries, I had to switch to English as I was getting good on English, I had to go switch back to Greek. And once I was getting good on Greek, I had to switch back to English. I'm like, okay, this is getting a little retarded at this point. So when I finally focused on one, my brain was already matured enough, but um, I guess that when you're younger, you pick up things less faster. They say, I'm not sure the age
Right.
group.
Right.
They picked it up very late on me, like
Hmm.
11th grade. That's when they realized, oh, by the way, he has a disability. I'm like, excuse me?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's how late they find out.
All right. Shout out to What
Yep.
We Know podcast. Thank you so much for swinging through and visiting us tonight. Thank you for everything that you do in the spaces. Thank you for that melodious voice that you give to every panel on that we're on. So that JT voice should be
That's my man right
should be
there.
a radio DJ somewhere on something on the. You should be doing Quiet Storm or anything else. But salute you, brother, for everything that you bring to the BMU space and as well as your own podcast. Make sure you guys go and like and subscribe to What We Know podcast. Again, also to Mrs. He Said, She Said, they also have a podcast as well. So go out and support our people that support us. And, we want to pour back into them as much as they pour back into us. So, but yeah, so that because I notice sometimes like when you text or whatever, like
Mhm.
sometimes the spelling may not be necessarily phonetically correct. What was that a difficulty when you were in school? Like how'd you do in
Absolutely.
grammar? Yeah, so
Oh,
that
I
was like
struggled
one of
so
your worst
much.
yeah,
Yeah.
with grammar. Yeah.
Even when they were, when you're about, you see the year they want you to take your tests, for your college. My counselor looked like, man, don't bother. You're not gonna make it to college. This is gonna be
Mm,
a waste of time, and you're gonna fail probably every class. He goes to me because you're not gonna get the help you get here.
right.
So I recommended trade school. I was ready to think of trade school no matter what.
Right, right,
So I
right.
was thinking about getting my hands dirty like a mechanic. I loved cars back then. So, and I still love cars now. I'm a guy. Don't need to say more. As guys, we love cars.
Right.
Bigger the engine, bigger the balls, bigger the power, bigger the things. So I was
I
saying I
got
can
you.
make, work on car, maybe get in a performance shop. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did great on the hands-on. I struggled through the was a 2-year course. I struggled the
Yeah.
whole time during the test. To
Yeah.
the point like they realized after my third course was every 3 weeks you get a new course.
Right.
So that's it was rapid, boom, 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 boom.
Right.
So when they realized I was in my third course, they go to me, something's going on with you. You know this stuff, but you're failing your tests.
Right.
We don't understand
Right.
why. I'm like, engines 101, you did really good. You've rebuilt the whole engine. What's going on here, Pete? I'm like,
Yeah.
I have a disability. What the hell let me tell you? I'm here. That's why I'm here. He goes, what do you mean you have a disability? I'm like, when I signed up, I sent didn't my school send you a translate? He goes, no. Thank you, goddamn freaking school system, failing me once again.
Wow.
So they actually end up calling the school. They finally send them over. He goes, yeah, our bad. We need to actually give you a little help with the testing. So
Yeah.
we had, somebody help me, just read through it. And when they started doing that, I'm like, I was acing every class almost. Like
Right. Right.
I was always there. I never really skip school
Right.
because I'm paying that. I'm not gonna skip
Yeah.
school. Not in high
Right.
school. Like you don't care. You're gonna skip as much as you want. You can give a shit back
Right.
then.
Right.
So when I came out, I'm like that's nothing I struggled is on a computer. You're right. You type in up what diagnose a car, and you diagnose it, and like people coming up and like, what the hell are you saying there? I'm like,
Yeah.
I explained to him like that makes no that's not make English here, and he struggled. Back then it was even worse because we didn't have spell check on the computers. We
Right.
didn't
Right.
have our cell phones. You go say you talk right into it to say, okay, I don't know how to write piston, for example. And
Mhm.
like you can just put in your phone, and type it up. You know what I'm saying? It was
Yeah.
so many. You have so many options now. Back then, you
Yeah.
didn't have that option.
Right. Right.
I'm talking about early 2000, 2005, 2006. I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't have that option.
Right.
So I struggle. People even looked at me like, "You're retarded. You're stupid. You have to be. You will have to be really stupid." Or
Mm.
like, "Excuse me? No, actually, I'm actually pretty goddamn smart."
Right.
You know what I mean? Girls literally looked at me and was like, "I'm not gonna date someone who can't read." I'm like, I just struggle with it. I mean, it doesn't mean I can't read.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? If you're gonna knock me down for that, then you don't belong in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, people can be very, I guess fickle
Ignorant.
when it comes to that, and certainly, now if you don't mind me just digging a little bit further, so
Go
what do
for
you
it.
think happens when okay, when it comes to spelling, is it like your mind is competing over two different languages? Like before you execute something, it's like there's a Greek part, like how, like even today, how often do you speak Greek or think in Greek? Like the movie
All the time.
Firefox, my favorite line is think Russian. So
Like a good example, literally right before we got on air, I was talking Greek to my mother.
yeah,
She speaks Greek. My father, I speak Greek 100%. And like one of my best friend, Dimitri, Greek, 100% Greek.
right, right.
My father Costantino, we go back and forth English and Greek with me and him.
Mhm.
So depends who I'm talking to. Like my best friend in Greece, when I'm on like a video chat like this, and like not similar, obviously. We're spoken Greek the whole time.
Yeah,
My friend Sotiri, a Greek guy who's a painter around here, in
right,
my area, Greek. Like
right.
I do hang out with a good amount of Greeks, believe it or not.
Right, right. So the speaking and whatnot and the
Mhm.
cognitive being able to understand and give it back is an issue. Now, what about writing Greek? If are
Writing
you
Greek,
how good?
I know how to do it. I just don't. I can't process it as much as well anymore because I haven't used it in years. You
Right.
know when you
Or
say
can
you
you
don't
read it?
use
Like,
something, you lose
could
it.
you pick up like a Greek, like what's the major newspaper in Greece?
Probably, probably. I'll say the 2020. I think it's called now. Like if it's
2020.
around, yeah. So
Okay,
if I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way.
yeah,
If I went back to Greece right now to move, I have to study a little bit to actually pick it up. Once I study, I can pick it up like that.
right, right.
Read just like that.
So a
Spelling
lot
just
of
like
that
that.
is just a repetition of it. But the
That's what
language
it
you
is
wouldn't
right
have
now.
any problems getting around. But the phonet,
No.
the grammar part, and being able
Yes.
to pick up
Yeah.
and read books and
I'll
you
give you a
know.
good example. Like
Mhm.
in Greek, you have three different s's. So some s's, excuse me, some s's are beginning a sentence, some are in the
Right,
end, some
right,
are Mr. or Mrs.
right.
Some is you're addressing somebody. The grammar so is like you look at it, I'm like, why the hell do I have three? I have three eyes.
Mhm.
Man, you know that alphabet out there that has three goddamn eyes, three
Right,
S's, three A's. I'm like,
right.
really? Yeah. I'm like
So how many in total? Is that what 30, 32? English has 26, so and Greek total was about 30, 32.
30. I think I'm like 30, 40 around there. It's been a while
Okay,
since I've done
okay.
it, to be honest with you.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now you also had the issue of now in Greece, because I think you said English is compulsory, correct? It's a language.
Second
So
language. Yeah.
is a lot of again, you go into a library or a square or a bookstore or something, are books as readily available in English as they are in Greek? Or is it mostly, if I went there today and I went into a place like that, what would I see? Would I see English and Greek versions of everything down the middle, or would it be mostly in Greek, you think?
I think it'll be in Greek, 100% in Greek.
Everything will be in
You're
Greek?
gonna have
Okay.
something. Let's go with drink for argument's sakes. You're gonna have it in Greek, but you might have some of them in English. Some drinks will do that, like Pepsi and those universal drinks.
Right,
Like
right.
if I'm talking about like a local Greek drink, like Portocala, for example, is orange. That's what it is. The soda is called orange because it has a flavor of orange, like
Mhm.
Fanta, for example.
Yeah, yeah.
That's gonna be 100% Greek, and you
Right,
can only find it in Greece. I can find it here in the States,
right,
but I have to know where to go get it.
right.
But it comes down to what product are you looking at?
Yeah. So if I went to like a McDonald's, and I'm assuming if McDonald's exists in Greece, would
It
it
does. It
say
does.
McDonald's, or would it be in Greek letters McDonald's? Or
It will be in McDonald's. Actually, I can find a picture actually for that
Mhm.
to show everybody
That'd be
because
interesting to
it's
see.
actually is. I think a little both. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
depends what part of Greece you're going. If you're going to a tourist area or what, it depends where
Yeah, most
exactly.
tourist areas, they're gonna have, a lot of English speaking. But if I was just in like in the local town or whatever, and I was just trying to get around and again, because English is a second language, I might be able to get by with some, at least asking someone a question or asking if they speak
So I'll put
English
it
or
this
something
way:
like that.
if
But
you ask a question in Greece, you're gonna get by not 100% because most people learn Greek. I'm consuming English. It's their second language in Greece.
yeah,
You
yeah,
have to pass English. There's no
right.
way around it.
Right, right. Phonetically, but the writings and whatnot, like road signs and things like that, more than likely are going to be in Greek. Now, you guys also use the metric system or imperial system over there, like measurements and. You guys use kilometers or feet and miles and things of that nature?
Kilometers. I had to think that for a
Kilometers.
second.
Okay, so
Yes,
you
kilometers.
mostly adopted the metric system over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of those American things. Like, every time I get asked, like, why do you guys still use the imperial system? And it's like, you get that pro American. Well, we're America over here, so we use the imperial. It's almost like a resistance to adopting the metric system in the U.S. here. So there's a big affront to that, even though most of the
So
world's
I'm looking
following.
at the McDonald's pictures right now. It has
Mhm.
it literally in Greek, mostly in Greek. I can actually try share this somehow.
Yeah, yeah. So mostly in Greece, but you wouldn't know what's there because it's probably like of a certain font, or you still see the golden arches or whatever. So you
Yeah,
you could still probably make out that it's a
it has
McDonald's or whatever.
literally the big M, everything you're used to seeing. It's
Right,
exactly like that.
right,
It's kind of cool, actually, in my opinion.
right, right. Now, are some of the symbols, are they well, I think we share some symbols, right? Like the M is considered like an M in Greek also. Is it, they use some
Yes, like
Latin characters
one
or
of the
whatnot as well,
three
right?
S's, one of our regular S's is actually the same one as here.
As the S here.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Shout out to Trey, who showed up. The other Trey, who showed up actually the last show that we had. Appreciate you showing up. But that was an impromptu show. We were just, going to have an open line. People want to call in and chat it up with us. And we so appreciate Trey coming on because we learned so much about him, and we all know about his police career, but he also had a military career. And the coolest thing of all is that he was a K9 trainer in the military. So we're all, one thing for sure, we're all dog lovers. Okay, that's the picture. Nice.
Yeah, look, if you zoom in right under the Big Mac, you see
Right.
the Greek letters in there. And I'm like, like
Right. So you can still
kind of
make it
cool,
out.
actually.
Yeah. We're going to actually, let's revisit this because I think one of the upcoming shows that we're going to talk about, I think, is food. And so I'll be very
Oh,
interested
we're
in
definitely gonna be talking about food.
so
Come on now.
we can definitely bring that up in the combo too, about especially the influence of
My man, I'm a chef.
cultures in Greek.
If we're talking about food, this fat ass
Agreed.
is talking about food.
That's fine. We're gonna get there. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that exchange for sure. But let's get into this topic a little bit. So I wanted to start out with, again, I guess one of the impacts of you being raised in different cultures. So again, you went to Greece when you were how old?
Uh,
5, or was it
yeah, 5, 6 around there.
5 or 6?
Yeah.
And so what was that experience like? So again, grow up in America. So now, was English your first language
Yeah.
at the time? So your parents really didn't speak Greek a ton. I mean, I'm sure they spoke Greek at home, but
Well,
you
yeah, I picked
started,
up
I
the
guess,
words here and
kindergarten,
there.
or what's
Yeah,
that?
I remember picking words here and going to kindergarten, first grade, second grade, talking to my
Right.
teachers to go, hey, this means spiti. So you're looking at me, huh? I'm like, means house in Greek. She goes,
Mhm.
okay, why do I care? Literally the
Mhm.
words it said to me, like they were like trying to be
Right,
smart
right,
about it.
right,
And I picked up words here and there. I really don't understand that. But when I got shipped up to Greece, I go, oh, this is real. I didn't
right,
process
right,
as a kid. It's something like it was like
right. But then you
mommy,
were
that was
also exposed as very young, probably to like American television or the
mm-hmm.
cartoons or what at
Yep.
a very young age. So
I
English definitely.
remember
Yeah.
like watching the OG, the original Power Rangers when they
Oh yeah.
first air.
Yeah.
And when I left for Greece, and I'm like, where's the Power Rangers? Where's the Ninja Turtles? Where's the
Oh
Batman?
wow.
Like some of them we had there. We had the Ninja Turtles there. But
Mhm.
when I turned it on, click on like it was in Greek. I'm like, this is not the Ninja Turtles I know. I'm like offended
Now,
here.
did they change? 'Cause I think we talked about it on one of your hangout shows.
Yes.
Did they not only change the
Dale.
the language to Greek, but what I've also noticed here, especially all those Japanese shows that came over, like um, Battle of the Planets, Gotcha, all that stuff, they even would change plot points. So even what you might have remembered as a kid, as far as the plot point of something, they would change it to make it more amenable to a Greek audience. I remember like GI Joe, for example, growing up. They would change it in different markets because, again, real American hero doesn't really translate well or doesn't really go anywhere with that audience. So they had to make them international heroes or something like that, to make them more like a not so tied to America. So did you see a lot of the shows growing up where they were changed specifically to accommodate Greek culture or something that'd be more relatable to Greek people? or was it the same show?
I'm gonna
It's just
use
like,
GI Joe for example. That's a
sure.
great and like so a real American hero was still a real American hero in Greece.
Mhm.
They were just talking about everything the same. Nothing really changed the the
Okay.
storyline because you how can you change a United States somebody in the United States Special Forces operations? They're talking about
I've seen that.
U.S.
In
Yeah,
Italy, for example, they called them. In fact, they even changed the theme song to
really.
International Heroes in Italy.
Wow.
So again, like I said, they kind of tweak it for that particular market. A lot of stuff could be political. Maybe they didn't like the president at the time or whatever, but they would make those changes to accommodate the market. But so so you go over. You
Hmm.
started out, learning, some English. You responded very well in English. You get to Greece day one, and you're staying with who? Your grandparents or
My
your?
grandmother, my grandfather has passed at this point. So it
Okay.
was my grandmother and me, and it was kind of awkward. Now I look back because my grandmother was raised three kids, her my two twins uncles and my mother. So
Hmm.
the times have changed so much.
Hmm.
Like, she doesn't know what the hell video games are. She
Right.
doesn't know why I'm watching this stuff. Back then it was like Guy Josie's. Guy Josie's like a puppet almost, a shadow puppet. That's what kids loved back then.
Right.
Now you watching this stuff, I'm like, really? What the heck is this? You seeing the Power
Yeah.
Rangers, I'm like,
Yeah.
why are the guys are in these suits? Hercules, that is the best example of the show Hercules. Do you remember that one?
Oh, the one, Kevin Sorbo.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
grandma hated that show with a passion. Xena too, because they're like, they never had leather back then. I'm like, it's a show. But she didn't
Yeah.
care. And she was, because that goes with our culture so much. It
Hmm.
was talking about, something like Alvin and Chipmunks. Yeah, if you remember back in the day, they came out with a little cassette all the kids used to buy. It was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
the Olympic soundtrack. They're humming it.
Hmm.
Oh, I got shit for that one. Oh my god! I remember people like, "I'm gonna break that. They're making fun of our Olympics. We are the founders and the best ones ever made." Yada yada. And they're serious about this stuff. Like, if
Yeah.
you talk to a Greek and says he's not a proud Greek, he's not a real Greek. I keep that right now.
Mm.
If
So
you ask me,
there's a national. So there's the
yeah,
nationalism in Greece
all
is pretty high.
even here, I can put any of my friends on the phone right now. They'll tell you I'm a proud Greek. I'm
Right.
like,
Right.
how I address myself. And then people ask me, and but of course, people might ask you, what are you? I'm like, I'm a Greek American.
Hmm.
Keyword Greek American. Greek comes first always because
Right.
that's how proud I'm proud to be in this country. There's some things
Right.
I don't like about it. There's some things I
Right.
don't like about Greece right now.
Right. Right.
I mean, back then, but it doesn't mean I'm not proud to be who I am. Obviously,
Right.
I got wrong arm. I got it right here. Name a Greek who doesn't
Yeah.
have a Greek tattoo. You're not a real Greek if you don't have a Greek tattoo.
Really?
Period. Dot. Boom.
So most guys are gonna have a Greek tattoo, a Greek flag, or something on them.
95% of them men who have tattoos will have a Greek tattoo on them.
Will have a Greek tattoo on.
Yes,
Wow.
if you're a tattooer, if you're tattooed like myself, that's one tattoo you're gonna get is a Greek tattoo,
Right. Right.
and I put
All right.
money on
So
that.
gotcha. Gotcha. All right. So let's stay with the youth. We're gonna build a narrative and arc over
Go
time,
for it.
and then I'll share a little bit of my
Mhm.
perspective in terms of my experience here, which for many ADOS African Americans is going to be different from most. And so I can, and you feel free to ask me any questions on that as well.
Yeah, go for it.
So again, so you're in Greece at 5 or 6. So the first
Mhm.
thing that you have to get past, we talked about this a little bit in our first show, uh, um, getting around the neighborhood. Okay, so you're the new kid. What are you experiencing as a kid? Are they calling you names, American? What's the so give me that vibe as far as being the new kid from America, even though your parents are fully Greek, 100%, all of that. You're there. What's the reaction, not just for the school kids, but just in the neighborhood, in the home that you were raised in? Give me that experience being and essentially an immigrant in your own country, which again, not too many people, have the opportunity to experience, but really flesh that out for us in terms of what that experience was like growing up in that
So
environment.
this one is a
Those
bittersweet
early
and it
years.
hits home for me. It's bittersweet and it hits very home for me.
Yes,
So when I
go for
first
it.
got there was weird, different. And I'm going to touch base on this question in a second. I want to finish my
Hmm. Oh, shout
thought.
out to Blaze McCrory. Thank you so much
Yeah.
again for stopping in and seeing us. Really appreciate you for
Yeah.
being on with us for all these shows. Appreciate you being here.
So when I first got there, it was like nobody wanted to do anything with me because I was the foreigner. I was like a diseased person. All right.
Mhm.
So when people got to know me, like, he's not a bad kid. My nickname was in the Ghost of Sparta. That came later. Was in Panayotis. Or the nickname of Panayotis, Pano Otakis. My neighbors call me that, that grew up with me, who remember me as a baby, pretty much.
Mhm.
They called me Americano. Americano means American. My grandma
Medicano.
hated that
Wow.
nickname because, for one reason, people think we're Americans. We are rich, and that's far from the truth, obviously.
Right.
And she was scared someone's going to try and take me from her or kidnap me and ask for all this money.
Mm.
That's why she hated that word so
Right.
much.
Right.
So when I first got there, people didn't thought I was weird in a way almost. And I was okay with that. I'm always been the black sheep or the lone wolf.
Mhm.
And George, my best friend, love him to death. When we first get, we didn't like each other. We thought it was weird. To We kind of got in a little fist fight outside of church.
Mhm.
The
That's
older
not the truth.
kid, we were older boys, and the older kids egged it on. We were dumb little boys, didn't know any different.
Now, what
So
was the case? What was the deal with George? Was he also from America as well, or what was the?
he's my name. We were like 3 or 4 blocks away from my house.
Okay. Okay.
He was just a guy I met through a kid I met through school,
Right.
church. Excuse me. We didn't go to school together, and we became best friends because we had everything in like. He's in Star Wars. I'm in Star Wars.
I got you.
He likes
Okay.
X-Men
Okay.
and so on. So if we never got in that fight, we probably would never be best friends.
Mhm.
I'll put it this way: I kind of ripped his hair out, like about this big chunk by accident.
Oh my gosh.
George, you watch this? I'm sorry, dude. um, but those are the buildings time. Now, when people were trying to get to know me, I went to a different school for immigrants. They had a school just for immigrants to learn the
Right.
language, and it was different. You see people from different cultures. I knew people from Africa. I knew people from Japan. I
Yeah,
knew
we
people
talked
from
about it in the first
Russia.
show. Yep. Yep.
I was like,
Mhm.
wow, this is different.
Yeah.
Then I went to a special. Then I went to a private school. Then I was really out of place. I'm like, "What- most of these people have money. I don't have anything. Far from the truth. When I started meeting them, like I started hanging out with them in Costa. Wait a minute, your dad works a 9 to 10 job? Yeah, but he just works from home on a computer. That's a thing. Yeah, my mom's a teacher. You're not rich? No, dude, I'm not rich. I'm like you.
Mm.
Seriously? Like, yeah. Oh, because you think about private schools, and I remember watching TV here in the States or even in
Right.
Greece.
Right. Right.
When you hear private school, you
You
think,
think people got money.
yeah, it was
Right.
far from the truth.
Right.
I went, wow. Because it was a different mindset there.
Mhm.
And that's one thing I do love about Greece. The mindset, like, you may be walking down the street and you might be very successful. Maybe 2000, make 2K a year, for example. And you don't need to show off your money. You can be an average Joe down the street and you be fine with
Mhm.
it. You know what I'm saying? Big difference.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the way you grew up versus the way I did, for example.
Mhm.
Were you a lone wolf like me?
To an extent, yeah.
Really?
We didn't travel outside the country actually, but again, my parents they split basically when I was born, and so by the time I was age 5, my mom, and she was having her own issues, mental issues or whatnot. We actually moved back to the South, so I didn't go necessarily to a different country, but I certainly moved to a different culture. And so, growing up in New Jersey, age 5, going back to the farm, like the essentially the home that they grew up in, this was a home that didn't have indoor well, it had some indoor plumbing. They had, running water, but they didn't have bathrooms. So the idea of an outhouse or the idea that and the only running water was like in the kitchen. So it's like people would wash up in a bowl, like a big white bowl. They would fill it with hot water, and you would basically wash up, like,
Old
standing
school.
naked or whatever and watching yourself up there. But there was no showers, no baths, none of that stuff there. And so, it was a very different experience. And obviously, across the street from the house, there was cattle and cows that my grandfather, um, owned. And so that was certainly very different from the original house that my dad bought. Again, he bought it on a GI, from the FHA, coming out of the military. And again, they were essentially the portal for a lot of my relatives who came from the South to come up to the North and get jobs. So they got, we had Ford and GM plants in New Jersey at the time. And so he really, they had this big 2-family house. And I just remember growing up in a mostly urban, suburban
Mhm.
neighborhood. And so remembering a lot of that. So going down to the South, it was definitely very much a culture shock for me. Now, I didn't get slack for being, a Yankee, or no one called me those kind of names or whatever, because again, the relationships going back and forth between those in the North and the South was pretty consistent. And a lot of my relatives, they would always go down to the South for the summers. And this was something that, for the longest time they did, to the extent that even the way they speak is different than me. So I went down for that period of time. That I think it was like a 2-year period where I was down there with my mom. And then we eventually moved back up to the North, and I've pretty much been in the North ever since. But I have cousins who go down to the South every year. Schools out, you hang out in the South for the summer, and they all have like a Southern twang, a Southern accent. Even though they graduated high school in New Jersey, went to college and all that kind of stuff, they still have those Southern sensibilities that I do not have. So as an adult, I really feel a bit out of place when I'm at family functions, family reunions, or whatnot, because I have like it was only till an adult when they started kind of calling me a little bit, especially my older, or like I talk like a white guy or something, because I just didn't have that deep Southern drawl. I didn't have those ways. Even some of the foods that they ate, a lot of, like I'm good with some soul foods, but not all of them. So like chitlins, hog maws, like all that deep Southern stuff. I'm like, but my dad, my mom, my siblings, because again, they grew up in that culture a lot longer than I did. And so because of that, I felt a little bit of an outcast from there. But it wasn't so bad where it was like, go back to the North. I was getting that kind of, and I didn't go to schools down there. Again, I was down there when I was very young, but most of my schooling was pretty much in the North. And, so I never had that, adaptation. Mostly it was on the farm in that very small house with all the cousins, and, cousins just kind of spread out throughout the area. And so that was really, um, uh, a different experience, but an enjoyable one to a large extent, because it was very carefree. You didn't deal with, neighborhood bullies or anything like that. You didn't have a lot of uh, um, distractions. It was just, you be out, you played, played cops and robbers.
Mhm.
We got cat guns, and we just did, it was a simple life, but definitely his rifle every night, and he would shoot. You'd hear the shots going off. He's shooting birds and squirrels and anything that he could catch outside. He'd bring it back. He would give it to my grandmother, and she would clean it up, and that would be the food that she would be preparing that night. And I got to tell you, the smell of those things cooking is something you just do not forget, because
Good or
again, there's
bad.
no, yeah, because again, in these old houses, there's no ventilation. You don't have like an overhead vent for
Oh, I know.
ventilation or whatnot.
I know from Greece. Trust
Yeah,
me.
so so it was like that scent. Like if I hear it, I immediately go back to, you know, um over 40 something years, almost 50 years ago, dealing with that. Again, salute again. Again, appreciate you being here. So I remember that, but that was again a very different life. I mean, the outhouse. I mean, going to the outhouse was just like, you tried to hold it in if you could. if you could. That was just something I just could not get used to. It was about 100 yard, maybe about 50 yards away from the house, so you had to walk to get there. It was in the back. It was woody, and whatnot. It was an old outhouse as well. It didn't have any amenities on it. It was just old wood, and you go there and you would you
We
did your
have something
business and you went
similar
back.
that we don't know about. So
What's
when I
that?
lived in Greece, my house was one of the few houses in the neighborhood had two bathrooms. Was one inside and one outside, running water. So in the summer, if you need to take a dump, you don't take a dump in the house, in the inside bathroom. You go the
Okay,
outside.
outside. Okay,
Because how bad you dump, you're gonna smell probably.
right,
And
right, right.
and
So
you
again,
always go with the outside one. And I'm like, I never
right,
understood that. Now
right.
I get older, like, oh, now it makes sense because no vegetation system. It was
Yeah,
window. It was like a little window like this small. Like, there we go.
yeah,
That's it. And you'll pull the
right.
chain down.
Yep.
Oh,
Now, did you guys have baths or bathtubs or shower stalls? For the
bath.
most part.
Bath.
You
So we had the old school ones. I call old school. This is where I grew up. The handle detaches from the wall, and you just do your business and put it back on the wall. So now actually they're back in style. Almost everybody's buying those detachable shower heads that come
right.
off. And do you think you might want to do one of
Yeah,
these things?
yeah.
You know,
You know, having a graphic, yes, we understand. It's
I'm
a
wearing
very
pants.
versatile
Don't worry.
tool. It's
Listen.
a very
I'm keeping
versatile
it
tool.
PG.
Yes, we
I'm
get
still
it.
keeping it PG. I said I got pants on tonight. Some other nights we're on a barber shop. I don't usually wear pants, so I just give you a heads
See,
up.
we need to add TMI. All right, TMI. We don't.
Come on.
Yeah.
I'm
So
just
so
messing
so
around.
yeah.
I'm messing around. Seriously. But before we move on, I want to show two videos really fast. If that's
Sure
cool
thing.
with
Go
you.
for it.
All right.
Yep.
Let me see if I can remember this. How to do this now. Oop, wrong one. All right.
Yeah, Blaze, we're gonna get to your question. You gotta understand, we're a bit older than you, so we were in the prehistoric days. So we're gonna build a narrative up to modern day where social media is prominent and how it affects our cultures. We're gonna get there, but we got to go back in time. We got to build up to that. So again, we were like
Yeah.
what social media is. So we're very
All right.
old school in that regard. But we'll,
Ready?
we'll we'll definitely get to your question. Yeah, go ahead.
You're gonna get a kick out of this. Let me
You might
raise the
want to
volume a
zoom.
little
You
bit.
might want to blow it up on that on the right there. Yeah,
There we go.
yeah. Now play it. All right. I'm not hearing any sound, so I don't know if there's sound available.
That was literally in Greek just now. Make sure you even another one I have actually set up.
What was that? GI Joe? What was that?
Saber Riders and a Star Sheriff. I'm going old school now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is more in Greek. Let me get the volume back up.
Oh, Ninja Turtles. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember if this was something I saw. I know there were so many different versions of Ninja
Yeah,
Turtles
this is
cartoons over
the
the
newer
years.
versions,
Right.
but this is the background music is pretty much the same, but the
Mhm.
lyrics are completely different now
Okay.
because it's in Greek because you have to
Right.
change per language, obviously.
Right. Right.
So and that changes the whole narrative, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Gotcha.
So let's say up for us in pano, but it doesn't make sense in a song. Why would you put it up there? It doesn't
Yeah.
rhyme well, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to change it. So do you want to move on with the conversation or you want to touch base on Simon's questions before we move on?
Well, again, certainly the one question I saw was about again social media. So again, I
Okay.
want to kind of say that I want to go because again, your story is still kind of beginning. So you're in Greece
Yeah.
as a
You know
kid.
what? Let's hit the questions in the end. And so
Okay.
anybody wants to ask questions,
Yeah.
ask
Drop
them
it.
and
Yeah.
we'll swing back.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll do it. We'll
Where
do
we
it that
left
way.
off, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So again, my experience growing up
Mm,
in the deep South and having that that rural cultural background. I mean, certainly that was an experience for me. And again, um, we didn't have a lot of the modern amenities that you could probably relate to, or some people may relate to being in Greece. But it was definitely that was probably the closest thing I had to like a cultural change, and not only being down there for a couple of years, but also moving back up and up here to get ready for school and my
Let me ask you a
education
question
and so
now,
forth. Yeah.
living in the
Mhm.
South as a colored brother.
Mhm.
Is it like what we imagine in the movies? How what we see, like everybody's in one room kind of thing, or is it more like kind of put this more like okay, I can move over there now and be fine, comfortable still.
Yeah, at my age, I was probably too young to remember or see a lot of that. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, you talk about 1973, 1974, so you're talking 50 years ago. So,
Yeah,
and again, most of my experience because I was mostly contained to the house, but we would go out. We would go out to stores. We would go out to shopping centers and whatnot, whether it be like a Sears, like going like they're going to like Sears like on a Saturday. That was like a big deal. That was like going to the mall. You know what I mean? Like when you're a kid going to the mall. We didn't have arcades or whatnot, or going like downtown to where the city areas where the libraries and whatnot. So those are like considered like special moments. But I didn't see whites only signs. I didn't see or at least maybe I didn't pay attention. I didn't see a lot of Confederate flags and things like that I remember. I mean, they very well could have been there, but I just don't remember seeing that because again, that was something that and especially where you lived. Again, you lived situation. The people in the areas that we live were majority black, and so you weren't going to see a lot unless you went, like I said, to the Sears or whatever store that you were going to, or the downtown where you would see white people or whatnot. It wasn't something that you experienced on a regular basis. So for a lot of us, we were kind of at that time we were isolated. I mean, my siblings they might be able to share a bit more, and I can certainly ask them about what their experience was because a lot of them lived in the South longer, certainly than I was there. Some of them came up when they were, school age and whatnot, so they could probably relate to that a little bit more. But I didn't get the sense that I was in danger or anything of that nature at the time. So I'd be one to ask,
now
yeah.
when it came to going to stores or anywhere, how far were you distance wise?
It was a waste. I mean, you definitely nothing was in walking distance. Like I said, when you're on like in a farm environment, you definitely needed a car to get around. There wasn't a corner store or something that you could just walk to by foot. And that was the thing. We'd all, my uncle or someone got in a car and they were going to the store. We were like, hey, can we come with you? Just to get, off the farm a little bit. So getting
Get a
into a
break.
store, and I remember one of my uncles, he got a 1974 I forget the name of the car. It was like a Pontiac. And it was like the coolest thing because it just kind of got off the lot and everything. So it was like a brand new car. So anytime we could all just dump in the back seat of the car. And again, cars were much bigger back then. So you can put 5, 6 kids in the back of the car,
And we
and
were
he would
smaller
take us.
too.
Yeah, and so he would just take us to these places and whatnot as well. But no, you absolutely had to if you wanted to go somewhere. But again, a lot of what we ate and a lot of things that we consumed, they were kind of done on the they were actually done on the farm. Uh, Now this is something that might be really old school for you. Now I don't know when you talk about soap. Now in the South at that time, people made their own soap. They would get that animal lard and they would make these giant blocks of soap. You would cut a piece off. It smelled absolutely horrible. It did not smell like Dove or Palmolive or any zest or any, ivory. It didn't smell like any of that. But people made their own soap blocks back then. So a lot of what you had was homemade
Homemade.
to the max.
So with the soap, I didn't know anybody that bought made their own, but my grandma knew people, and she used to go and buy a big goddamn block. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? And she's
Yeah.
cutting it with
That's
a
right.
knife
Lost
and
in
everything.
translation. Salute to you, sir. Thanks for stopping by. Yes, it had lie in it. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. That was the old school stuff. But it was like this big black dark block. And you would just cut a piece off and it's like, here you go. There's the soap go. And again, we didn't have a bathroom, we didn't have showers and baths. So again, you would get um that hot tub of water, and you would literally stand up and bathe yourself standing up in the water. Yeah, that was true. In fact, I full disclosure, I have a traumatic experience there because my cousin, he was such a jerk back then. He was a kid, and he actually was just acting up because he didn't want to get washed up by his cousin. and in a sign of rebellion, he actually defecated in the water that we were all supposed to wash up in. it
Ew.
was it was pretty bad. I don't that's one of those things that just burnt into your memory, man. It's like, oh man, he was just a and she tried to watch me. I was like, I'm not washing up in that. So I knew enough sense to do it then. But yeah, we had very limited we had very limited resources in order to do things. So yeah. So you said your grandmother she knew how soap was made or people would make it, but yeah,
Yeah,
for
she knew
us,
somebody, because again, she grew up during World War II. Back then, I assume they were making it still. So
yeah,
I remember
yeah,
her taking a knife and cutting it and giving it away, and everyone's like, "This is real
yeah.
soap." I'm like, "I'm not using that stuff.
I
Screw
said it
that."
smelled god awful.
Yeah,
I
dude.
remember
Yeah,
when we came back up, because again, that was also something. It's like if someone went down south, for a time, they would bring stuff with them. So, for example, Georgia in particular, that's where my most of my kin folks are from. Peanuts is a big thing down there. A lot of peanut farms or whatnot.
hmm
So you would come back up and you have these bags, these big giant bags of like freshly picked peanuts. I mean, not the store bought, not planters or anything like that. They would be like the real pins. If we would eat like pork rinds, for example. You would actually get the pork, the real ones, the ones that got the hairs on them. I mean, the really not the crunchy stuff in the back that they try to make like the authentic stuff. So when we came up here, people would bring back those big giant blocks of soap. I'm like, it's like the thing's like 20 pounds and it's black and it smells. I mean, it's still, it soaps up good. It'll, get you clean and everything. But that smell was just something I just could not. I'm like, man, catch out, just pour some perfume or something in there, pour some bleach in there. I don't care what you got to put in there. Put something.
I have an idea. I have an idea.
Oh,
All right, because BM uses his channel and everything. We gotta get him on board. Me and you need to go talk to Bath and Body Works and come up with a version like that and sell it for the women out there. Because I
look.
think people will buy this, man.
Well,
They buy
honest,
it.
right. Now, honestly, I've seen some YouTube videos on people who even today make their own soap, but they'll use stuff like I think the main issue was that they were using that animal product. So again, you need lye and you need like a fat source. So I've seen some today like they'll use like coconut oil. There's other fat sources, vegan fat sources that you can use to make soap with,
I can get you
and
fat
you're gonna
sauces. It's easy. I'll get you, from work, all this fat I carve off the chickens and stuff like that I don't use.
see
We can
now.
use
So that's the
that.
problem. The animal stuff. That's the stuff that's gonna smell. That's gonna you're gonna gag on it. I mean,
Shit, I'm not gonna use it. I'm selling it. Bath and Body Works are using that
no
crap.
one's
And
buying that from us. No one's buying that. Look,
you know what? People are
there's
stupid enough
plenty
to
of
buy
there,
stuff.
but I mean that is a trend. I know there are certainly plenty of people selling natural soap products. I mean, I know there's one
Uh,
that's
Doctor Squash is actually a
that's
very, very
Sasquatch, and yeah.
yeah.
So then you see most stores now they have some sort of natural soaps that they're making and whatnot. Entrepreneurs and we're not going into that, but a lot of them are vegan now. But back then, again, that animal lard, that animal whatever it was, oh my gosh, unrefined
Funny
and
because
yeah,
I done a review on my channel on the squash, and it's so harsh on your skin. It's not even funny. Like for 3 days, I'm lotioning up because how dry my skin got after using that stuff.
yeah.
Was it still the same thing back then? Was it that
Again,
harsh on
I
your
think
skin?
I might have been too young to remember.
Mhm.
And again, at that point, it was just about getting through it. Than not. So yeah, whether or not my skin was super. Because again, usually after your bath or however you did it, you put slapped a bunch of lotion on yourself or whatever they had to put on. It was a coconut or some sort of oil or something that they would put on you, and so again the thing was if anything if you had like some deodorant or something that was like the best thing, some right guard or something to spray under your armpits, something just to make you smell a little bit different than before. But yeah, but any lotion that had that cocoa butter in it or something like that would make you better. Or even if the girls had some cheap perfume or something, yeah, give me some of that. I just wanted to get away from it, but I want to move. I want to move away from this. This
But before we move on, I
Laws
want to tell
Laws
you one
knows what we're
thing.
talking about.
I'll tell you one thing
Laws, he's
before we
been
move on.
dropping some dimes, and even Blaze, he's been talking about it as well. Yeah, back in the day when people used to make those old soaps out of lard. Now I think he said you can't use chicken fat for it. You got to use like an animal or pork lard or something like that. Yeah, booty soup. Yeah, absolutely. So it's but back then they did all kinds of stuff. So I mean, when you like a luxury for us was having like frosted flakes. You know what I'm saying? Like Kellogg's frosted flakes. And that was like, if we could have that for breakfast, that was good. But breakfast would be like some fat back, fried fat back, and maybe some eggs and some sort of biscuits or something like that. That would be breakfast. But for us, a treat would be if we can get some not cornflakes, frosted flakes, Tony the Tiger, or fake Tony the Tiger cereal. If
I
we
mean,
had
the
that for
big bags,
breakfast,
right?
yeah. If we could have that, then that would be good. Now, see, we didn't even have the bacon. It was just the fat back. It was like, there was no meat. It was just a piece of fat that was just fried up and seared on, and that's what you would have. I think.
I want to add two things to this conversation. Hang on
Yeah.
one second. Me being the smart
Okay.
one. So the
Okay.
shower back then wasn't hanging up there because I'm used to American showers. They were always a hot shower. So I took a rope, I jigged it around another pipe, and I go, there
Whoa.
goes my shower. My grandma, what the hell is going on in my
You
shower?
made your own. Now, see,
Yeah,
we weren't even. Yeah, I don't even think we didn't
second.
even have any. Like I said, the only plumbing we had, like in the kitchen for the kitchen sink,
Mhm.
that is what we had for. That's what we had for plumbing. That was it. There was really no other plumbing in the house except for that. Um, but again, those treats like that, ice cream. Now we used to do this. Now I don't know. Back in the day, we used to have like the freezers. They would get, we didn't believe, there was no such thing as defrosting a freezer back then. So you know how a freezer gets very the
Frosty.
like someone posted. I don't know if you saw it. Someone posted a picture, a Star Wars reference to like the planet Hoth, where they got Luke Scott, like they have a Luke Skywalker figure. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
And good to see you. Luke Skywalker hanging upside down in a freezer because the ice. You know how like the freezer ice gets really thick, and you got to sort of break it off to like. So we didn't defrost the freezer; we would break it, but we made ices out of that. So again, we would go in with a cup, and you would scrape that ice off of the scrape off the top or whatever. Scrape it. You put a little flavoring, a little soda in it, and that was our icy. Okay. So again, we had very few luxuries to speak of. Anything that was store bought, peas, corn, all that stuff was fresh picked, and we would spend time. My grandmother used to tell me how do peas, how do you split the peas from the pods, and how do you prepare and wash the stuff and get it ready for the stews and soups and things like that. She would make so it was that was it. So you compared to how you grew up, I mean, you were living in luxury. You were a rich kid.
Yeah, like a lot
to
to us,
what we have.
to me, a treat was two different things. Three things. Like once in a while, I got ice cream. And I'm not talking about the big tubs you hide away. I'm talking about ice cream cone, and the soft one was the best one too.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
second treat was if you got a soda, and I only allowed one once a year. I have one because my grandma
Once a
didn't
year.
like. Oh yeah, she didn't like
Wow.
soda in the house. It's like only for
Okay.
special events like birthday parties or stuff like that. Usually that birthday happens once a year, so that's one time she got it.
Right.
And the other one, it was my favorite one to this day, is
Right.
a calo hiro. Oh, gamoto keratomu. In other words, a
That's
gyro.
one
Oh
word.
my fucking. That's a whole sentence.
Okay. All right. So what
Yeah.
is it?
So a good gyro or gyro, like most Americans know it.
Oh yeah.
I will rape that gyro apart any way possible. Oh
Yeah.
my god, I love that damn thing.
Yeah.
To this day, I only go to one place. If you're in New York, and I know you're close to New York, go
Right.
to
Right.
Astoria. Go find a place called King Souvlaki,
Okay.
and you're gonna have the best gyro. The closest thing that tastes like a gyro in the United States is that place. I have gyros
Well,
so
in
many different
Greece. Yeah.
places.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
close to
check it
Greece
out.
here. Yeah.
I got you. Yeah. Yeah. But the now it's the soda. Now again, not
Mhm.
you're gonna save some of this for the food show because I want to
Oh,
talk
I
about
have a lot
some
more
others.
for this food. I'm only
Absolutely.
this is a
So
tip.
now, does Greece have its own sodas? Meaning, like
Yeah.
flavors. Like if you go down to the islands, for example, like they got all these like cola lakai and all these different flavored sodas, like banana flavored sodas and things like that. Does Greece have like its own sort of flavored carbonated drinks. And I don't even know if you call those sodas or not. But aside, I'm not talking about Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Fanta or anything like that. I'm talking about, more native drinks that have a very distinctive flavor. Maybe they use different ingredients or flavoring agents than they have here that you remember trying when you were there.
Yes, it was one of those. It was orange, actually, believe it or not. And that soda was. You can find it to this day. It's a small bottle, like this small.
Mhm.
Like I say, it's a full one. This how big it is.
Yeah.
But that damn thing was so strong. It's so sweet. Oh my god, it's like
What did it taste like
sugar.
though? What was it?
It
Was
tastes like orange, like
okay.
orange
So it was an orange.
soda, but on steroids.
Mm.
A lot of people, you take it and water it down with water. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Oh yeah, I
You
learned my
learn your
lesson the
lesson
hard way.
fast.
Oh
You
yeah,
learn your
like
lesson fast.
ever like a sour pack catch, the really sour one. You do one of those things like, ooh, this is
Yeah.
too sweet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
Definitely.
how bad it is.
I hear you. All right. So let's get back to the your time in Greece. So again, you're going through this transition. You go into a school for immigrants, sort of like to help you get acclimated to Greek culture. Then you go to a private school, as it's called at the time. At what point did you start to be accepted? Like or were you ever accepted
In
as
Greece,
a Greek person, or did they still have that what the term that American, whatever term you use for American, did that stick with you the whole time were you there, and were you impacted by that as you got older? How long were you in Greece before you came back?
4 years.
15?
I
Oh,
was there
4
for
years.
4 years. Yes.
Okay, so by the
So
end, so
those
were they
four
still
years,
later on? Yeah.
for the whole 4 years, that sucked to me everywhere I went. Everywhere I went. But when I
Mm,
went back to Greece after I came back to the States, I lived here for a while, and I went back to a vacation. Yeah, that name went way fast. Um, I hated that name growing up
mm,
because I felt I wasn't a part of the team.
mm,
And I used to play soccer with the guys. I used to bled with them. I used to, get in trouble with them. I used to do stupid shit like everybody else did. But why was I so different?
mm.
Who never understood that?
Right,
I wasn't different. I was special. Give me that. I
right,
wasn't
right.
different. And they kind of, as a kid, you just want to be accepted.
Mhm.
You don't want to be a part of the group. You don't want
Yeah,
to be the
for
guy
sure.
out there.
That's right.
And that's how I felt always.
Right. And you had the additional, and again, I wouldn't call it a burden, for lack of a better word. I wouldn't call it a burden, but again, your interest. Like I said, me and you, we're kind of nerd guys. We're we're
Hmm.
we're into Star Wars and
Yep.
sci-fi comic books. We were those guys. So
Yep.
again, that's already going to put you on the outs with the quote unquote the cool crowd as it is. And then on top of that, being from America, on top of that, so for you had that to deal with. I'm wondering if you just went over and you were just like, for lack of a better term, an average kid. Like, you were into stuff that now, what are most Greek kids into? Is it just soccer? I mean, football, or is it
Back
what a
then,
typical Greek kid at around that age? So from age 5 to 10 or whatever, what do most Greek kids do that you maybe didn't gravitate to because of your interest? But what's a typical Greek kid doing? Was doing around that time?
so back then, the most kids were obviously soccer is number one. They were into cartoons. Obviously, everybody was into cartoons. The
Okay.
one
Now these
cartoon,
specific Greek cartoons or
yeah,
these
I'm about to get
American
into it right
cart?
now.
Okay, go
Actually,
ahead.
there were like one cartoon. It wasn't based out of Greece, but I was thinking mentality back then. Oh, there's a Greek thing. It wasn't. It was Actorman, and I spoke about it on my show on the
Mhm.
Operation Hangout about it.
Right.
And it wasn't like, oh, just a cartoon to me. To me, it was my culture. There's some cartoons that the Shadow Puppets I was talking about earlier is based on my, where I grew up, the guy Josie's. And it was the most funniest thing in the world to me.
Mhm.
And some other stuff, like, I'm looking back, I'm like, this wasn't Greek. I didn't know any better back then. I thought,
Mhm.
I was watching on TV. I thought it was Greek no matter what. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
When I was watching stuff, it was different. Now, with other kids, some kids were into Transformers. It was the same thing as here almost, but
Mhm.
a different version of it, for a better example.
Okay. Okay. So the early point that I
When
was making.
when I started building my clique, for better terms, I was I'm not, I won't say the oldest, but I kind of became the leader of my clique, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
Because what I already knew from the States, and I started bringing it heat to Greece. I mean to Greece. They realized, oh, this is kind of cool. My mom used to bring me some toys, and and she always used to bring extra toys to give away. And I used to give them to
Mhm.
my friends,
Okay.
and they were
That'll get you in.
they were the cool ones then.
That'll get you
Like,
in.
yeah, they like, oh, they didn't have the Transformers. That's before freaking Beast Wars even premiered in Greece.
Right.
Like when it premiered, I already knew about it. I'm like, oh yeah, you did this. I tell them the whole story. Like, how you know? You
Right.
don't know what I'm talking about.
You said Beast Wars. So you are a little bit younger than me. So yeah, I'm G1 all the way. 84, 85 through 86. Yeah. The
See, here's the
G1
thing:
Transformers.
when
Yeah.
the original ones are starting to end, that's where Beast Wars was starting to
Right.
premiere to
Right.
Greece.
Right.
So
Yep.
it was no lap there. It was like
Yeah.
boom, 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 because of the subs and translation. It took a while.
Yeah.
People don't realize you sit there like in front of a mic in a studio like this, and you're reading a script on a paper, and you have to act at it so you can get the emotion out of it. It's not that easy. Sounds easy to you, then you fucking do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
People don't realize
Right.
everything we see here is a privilege. Think of that.
Mm-hmm.
Run water, great example. Some countries don't even have water like that, clean water.
Yeah. They still have to go, I guess, down to the river or whatever to retrieve the water.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's definitely things we take for granted. You grow up not knowing, but I think that was also, I think, part of why a lot of my cousins were still somewhat grounded, because again, they went to, like I said, they would spend their summers or a good portion of the summer in the South, so they could see that difference between the two environments, and I think it made them a bit more appreciative of what they had when they were in the North. But at the same time, they're so used to what's life like in the South. They don't feel so out of place when they're there. But yeah, like I said earlier, the fact that we only had that one water source, and that was it. Yeah, that was definitely something that was a wake up. But I think even then I might have still been too young to really appreciate it. When you're doing that stuff as a teenager, like they used to have a program up here, I think it was called the Fresh Air Fund or something like that, where they would take these urban kids and they would take them down to the South in the summertime. I remember the commercial that used to come on in this in the Northeast area, but they show the kids swinging off of
Mhm.
trees into the water and stuff like that. So it was basically getting them out of the urban jungles, as we used to call them, and they would put them in the South to just give them a fresher perspective of there's more to it than just you looking outside and all you seeing is brick and whatnot. So I remember um those perspectives. But yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly a reason why to get out and see how people live and how people really explore things, so they can really have that have a better appreciation, as you were talking about before. But so the kids, they're into football,
Mhm.
they're into cartoons, they're
Yep.
into also stuff, but you still couldn't shake that label, and the fact that you were getting toys sent to you from America, and your mom would send you extra stuff. So again, I guess that made you a bit cooler, but you still didn't feel about it. So around the time age 9, age 10, that last year before you were coming back. Now, did you know you were coming back around that time, or was it kind of sudden where your parents goes, okay, send them back?
They kind of ripped the carpet underneath me.
Okay, so it wasn't something
I
that
didn't
you
know it
already
was
been
coming back.
intending.
I was thinking coming back to vacation, and next thing I know,
Mhm.
going school shopping. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I'm
So they
like,
kinda they kinda kidnapped you from Greece.
in a way, yeah. They tell me you're going back to school. I'm like, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. And
So, okay, you've embraced it, somewhat at this point, right? I mean, you're Greek, you're gonna yes, you got the American title that they're putting on you that you didn't like, but still, they are, um yeah, I think Police Athletic League, that might have been one of the groups that I was referring to that tries to take you into a different environment. I'm not sure if BM, you can clarify that. But you are, even though you are labeled the Greek person, it's still such a part of your reality that you don't want to leave it,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Like I used to wear things when I was here. I was wearing stuff like my pray robe. Like we always, almost every Orthodox person wears that.
Hmm.
I've been called every sexual term back then you can think of. Oh, he's gay. He's a fag.
I mean, you're
Why?
talking about here.
Yeah. When I first
Now,
came here.
hold on. I said I want to take people on the journey here. So we're coming to the end of your Greek experience, your
Mhm.
first Greek experience. So we're there. You're getting somewhat comfortable
Mhm.
in the space that you're in. You have some friends now. You've
Yeah.
developed your own friendship groups, and you're becoming, somewhat of a leader within your friend group. You know the lay of the land. You're Greek. I guess you're pretty fluent at this point. It wasn't the case when you first arrived. So
Yeah.
you got that down. And you're in a place where you're mentally accepting that this may be my life. This may be my, my experience. And then your parents somewhat abruptly take that away from you. So now we can
I'm gonna correct
let
one thing. I
okay,
didn't
go for it.
think I want to say I kind of accepted it. I already was happy. I was comfortable. I knew where I
Right,
was. I knew
right.
who I was becoming. And this is a part of my life. I'm like, ooh, it's kind of cute there. Starting to be interested into women too. So I'm learning a lot more things now about myself.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, like, what happened? I'm in a different country again. I'm
Hmm.
like, that's how fast it happens. Because I was
Yeah.
just traveling here, thinking I'm going to see my parents for a few months for the summer, and I'm like, I'll be back in Greece before I know it.
So
And
so
we didn't
so
get
they
a
didn't
chance to say
so they didn't
goodbye.
come they didn't come to Greece to get you per se. You were here thinking you were just on vacation visiting your family in America, and they basically said to you at that time when you got here, you're not going back.
Pretty much.
And that was it. Okay. So that's got it. So emotionally, what was that, what was going on there? What did
I
you,
was numb.
because I mean, at the time, I mean, you're also close to your, now I know you said your grandmother was there. You had other
Yeah.
relatives there, cousins, uncles, aunts.
In
Did you
Greece, I
have
had
other?
my godfather. That's it. And I
Oh,
have one
really?
cousin, but I'm not really
You're not close to
close to
them.
her. Yeah.
Okay.
My
Okay. So
godfather.
your grandmother's obviously there, and she's not coming to America anytime. Has she ever been to America?
Yeah, she used to come every 6 months. 6 months to Greece, 6 months here. She used to go back and
Okay,
forth.
okay, good. So, but you still had a bond there, just growing
Mhm.
up in that environment. So now you are I'm back, I'm back in America. They have to enroll you. So you're about 10 at this point?
A little bit older because I was going into sixth grade at the point.
Okay, so let's say if you were like 12. Okay, so if
Yeah.
you went there so you were actually 7 years in Greece, not five or four or five. You were like, if you came there at
Yeah, something
five,
like that.
6,
Yeah, my math was off. My bad.
and then you came back, you were around 12 years old. If you start
Yeah.
typically 12th grade, sixth grade, you're around 12 years old
Yeah, yeah.
at that
Yeah, that's
point.
right. I
So
did my math
six,
wrong.
6 to 7,
I never said
no,
my
no
math was
problem.
good.
No problem. So again, 6 or 7 years,
Mhm.
you're in this space. Now you're back home, not back in America. All right. Because again, right now, at that point, home was Greece for you.
Yeah.
So now you're back in the United States. And what's that's like? So that's over the summer. So again, September is coming up, and you're gonna be enrolled in now where'd you go to school? In New York? In
So when I first got back, I was back in New York. Back in my
Okay.
own room, my old room that was storage at one time.
Hmm.
And I went to Brentwood, Long Island, Brentwood.
Okay.
And when I was back in the high school, I was like, okay, this is like I see in the movies, lockers. I'm like, I felt I was in a movie for a minute there. Like, I have a
Mm.
locker. So what do I put in there? They looked at me like, your books. Why? Because I'm so used to carrying my books everywhere I
Carrying the
went.
books, yeah.
And a
Yeah.
book bag, like, because you have different classes. Wait a minute. You mean I gotta go to you? Yeah. Man, you guys are lazy. I went to them. And I'm like, excuse you? I'm like, the teacher needs to come to us. Remember, that's how it was in Greece. It was reverse. The student never left the classroom except go on his lunch break, recess, gym class. That's it. or the
Yeah,
bathroom.
that's the same here, but only up to middle school. So if you talk about grammar school, yes, grammar school here, you would stay in your class for the day and your teacher would be there or if a teacher would come in. By the time you start getting into like sixth grade and up, yes, you have different classes and classrooms that you would go to. So I think the time you came back around sixth grade, that would have I would think that may have now again, I don't know in Greece if you stay in the same room K through 12,
Yeah, you
uh,
do.
you so the whole time, so you know you don't go from one class to another, you don't report to homeroom and go to so all of the we didn't talk about that in the school show. So K through 12, you're in the one classroom the whole day and a different teacher comes in, but you don't go to a different classroom.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's
very different.
usually it's usually one teacher that teaches most of the stuff, but you might
Mhm,
have one or two teachers like her theater teacher. She come in and teaches theater or a dance
mhm,
teacher.
mhm.
So it's really or a gym teacher. It's like one or two teachers through the day you might have here and there change out.
Right,
But
right.
95% of it, you have one teacher teaching everything for us.
Right, right. Yeah, that's very for, especially for middle school and high school. Yeah, I mean, we're like running, and depending on where your class was, you might
You
have
yeah,
ran to
run
your
across
locker,
campus.
you switch your books, and you went to class. You tried to get there before class started, or what have you. But yeah, there was always that buzz. You hear the buzz, like this, the alarm would go off, and then that everything would just kind of stop at that point. You close your books, and the teacher's like, "Okay, tomorrow read chapter 7 and 5 and 7 and 8, and then." Be ready for the exam tomorrow, and you would just kind of leave and go off to your next thing. Or if you were going to gym or lunch break, then you could sort of take your time. But it was definitely a scramble. I think you might have had like 5 minutes to get to your next
Something like
class.
that. I
Yeah, something like
remember the
that. Yeah,
first day. It was like yesterday.
yeah. So
And they
you
tell
were
me to go to my first class. I looked at her like, "Why?" She looked at me like, "What do you mean why?" And I'm like, again, I didn't know any better.
didn't know any better.
And when she realized I was foreigner to her, it's just, "Oh, you go to the ESL class. Why?" I'm like, I didn't know anything better.
Right now,
I'm like,
how
"There's
good
no way
was
to
your
explain."
English at that time? Since you basically been
Decent,
speaking Greek,
decent. I
English was
could
decent at the
communicate.
time.
I could have a conversation with somebody very well, but you had a very thick accent at the time because Greek was my number one language for the longest time now.
Right, right.
So me talking to you, for example, you can hear my thick accent. And once in a blue moon, you gotta pay attention. It comes out. It depends on
Mhm,
the word I'm using.
right,
But oh man, I remember going in there that class. I was definitely not in Kansas anymore.
right, right.
I was like, what the heck? And again, the school I remember from the States was different. Going into high school now, we're talking about big boy school.
Mhm,
I remember people getting fights. I'm like, the hell is going on here?
yeah,
I could have handled my own. I was worried about that, but I was like
right,
kind of nervous in a way too because I was young. I just came back to the country, didn't know anybody in the school,
right.
didn't have no friends.
Mhm,
I'm getting picked on. Like, do I make my move and kind of knock this guy out and kind of like people scare me, or do I just play cool, be the cool guy? I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. Or make fun of him
mhm,
too. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do.
right, right.
I
Now
was like,
let me transition a little bit because again, some of this content I know we talked about doing the schoolwork, but
mhm.
I want to go to the idea of community. So now, when you move back here, were your parents living in a Greek community here? Was there like a local, because especially in New York, I know you said Long Island, but I know certain, like New York City, they have, Chinatown, they have New Jersey, they have like, or in, so that Brighton Beach, they have like Russian area, a lot of ethnic communities, certainly in the New York tri-state area. Was there a Greek community that you either lived in or that you had access to that your parents would bring you around to? And if so, what was that experience was like and how you were received by now the either the Greek immigrants or the Greek Americans that occupied that community, if that existed?
So this is a multiple answer question kind of thing to me.
Okay.
So where we lived, it was a small Greek community. Not
Okay.
big, but decent. Like my
Right.
mom's best friend was a few blocks away. I could literally walk to her house, and I had 100 times talked to Dina.
Mhm.
Her son Jerry and her son Angelo. Greek fine.
Mhm.
But they refused to because they knew what kind of shit show is going on. They said you need to speak English because you have no idea what you're walking into the next day. They're
Mm,
preparing me for war, pretty much. That's how I explain it to people because they knew how rough schools was,
mhm,
and they were worried about me. I was saying they were worried about me. They were worried. They're trying to toughen me up.
mhm,
The diner I used to work at, Greek and run by Greeks. I can't remember the name to this day. Expressway Diner.
yeah.
Without that diner, I wouldn't be the chef I am today.
Well, interesting. A lot of no New Jersey again. We got diners
And New
all over the
York.
place. We know for that,
Yep.
but a lot of them are Greek owned.
Yep. Here
Or
too.
some
That's right.
Mediterranean. They might be, some form of Macedonian or something like that. But there's something about a lot of the Jersey diners are owned by Mediterranean. I'll just say that more globally. Mediterranean um, people, and like just off the top, like why do you think that is? Is that just
We love food.
um, okay?
Simple. We love freaking food. And
But
we're
it's not like
pretty
they're
good at
making
it.
a lot of Greeks. Like there might be some Greek stuff. Like I might go to a diner and get a gyro, but it's not like a lot of Greek
It's
stuff
not
on
a
the
real
menu.
gyro.
But it's like American. It's American food
Americanized.
basically. But they're like
Americanized.
very much like all the local diners that I go to in the area. It's somehow Greek or some sort of a Mediterranean. I never had anyone
So,
explain that to me.
okay, with the diners, that's a easy way. We're good at it. One, two. Um, it's not only in Jersey, believe it or not. I've been in PA. I've been to New York. I've been to Jersey, obviously. I've been to Maryland. I've been to Virginia. Every time I walk into a diner, 99.9% of the time is run by Greeks. I
Mm,
remember going to Maryland with my best friend. We're sitting down talking, we're at a diner, yada yada. The next minute I know, he goes, he comes up, he could take your order, like, so I start ordering in Greek. He goes, "How do you know in Greek?" I'm like, "Oh, kind of hard to get away from the accent." I realized I can recognize a Greek accent from a mile away
right.
from me, like, how you, like, and so I'm like, "Oh, Elinas, Carlos dices." I'm like, "Hey, welcome, Greek." So like, yeah.
Mm.
I'm like, next time I know, like, we're not paying for this food. Like, my friend, like, when we're not paying for, we're not paying for. Trust me on this.
Is
Next time I
that
know, we're
right?
like, yeah. He goes,
You get the Greek card.
"Oh yeah, I got the Greek
Oh
card.
man.
I pull that Greek card as often as I can. I go, like,
I'm going.
enjoy
All right,
that meal."
I'm going out with you next time.
Yeah, it doesn't always work, but I try to make it work or get a discount
Yeah,
at least.
right.
But it's just Greeks are good at it. That's the reason why they do it, because
Mm,
you can pass it on to their family. You can have a whole family working. It's a multiple reasons.
yeah.
But back to the original thing we were talking about, with the community. The next community close to me, there were a couple of churches around in Long Island. We had Greeks in there, so I knew I was going to meet Greeks. The diner I
Mhm.
meet Greeks, but where the biggest Greek community anywhere in New York is going to be one. And I'm going to say this: Astoria, Queens.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Warrior Queens. Okay.
yeah. So Astoria, Queens. The story is, and I talked to a lot of old Greeks, um, older than you, like
Mhm,
our Payne's age. I'm not
mhm.
trying to knock them for that.
I got you.
And
Oh, Arpane was
Astoria,
through here earlier. Salute to Arpane. Thanks. He had stopped through again. He has support his channel on marriage, politics, and sports. Certainly go by and stop by and see him. He also does a
yep,
lot of work
definitely.
in the BMU network. Good brother. And again, thank you for stopping through tonight. Go ahead.
So the the Astoria area remind them back home how Greece was,
Hmm.
the way the area was built. So that's why all Greeks are migrating over there.
Right.
So that's why when you hear people like, Astoria, like, I'll give you a good example. A place called Ammonia Cafe. Ammonia is the train station back in Greece.
Hmm.
And he named it after the train station. And everybody goes there for coffee and dessert. And that's what it's for.
Hmm.
Like that, like Titan food. Titan food is a Greek supermarket, pretty much. You can get your stuff.
Hmm.
So Astoria is going, like, I remember when I moved back to New York for a little bit, maybe a week, 2 weeks tops.
Hmm.
I started making shitload of friends because of Greek. And I remember when I got offended the first time I was there too. I remember, like, somebody goes, "Oh, you're Latino." I'm like, "Excuse me."
No, that's you.
I'm like, "Talking to me?" "Yeah, you're Latino." I'm
Mm,
like, "No, where the hell did you get Latino from?" Because I used to shave my head back then, like a buzz cut.
mhm,
And he goes, "Oh, because you're looking like, I had the the thin lines and everything. I always had some kind of beard." He goes, "Oh, because you're," and I'm like, "No, you just offended the hell out of me."
mm,
Like, my coach, again, nothing gets any Latino, but What do I look like here to you?
If you spoke Spanish, I would say yeah. I mean, like again, there's a certain look. A lot of Mediterraneans, it's almost like you don't know necessarily where they're from. I mean, whether you Macedonian or who's like Kim Kardashian, her family, where they're from. Uh,
From
but that
Italian.
area is like you could be. If you told me you were Arab, I would believe it. If you told me you were Latino, I would believe it. You have a look that is prominent in different cultures. So I don't think that would be the most outrageous thing. Now, if you told me you were a brother, I'd be looking for like where the brother at. But these other cultures or whatnot, yeah, I could certainly see someone coming off and making the mistake. Yeah, he might be Latino. It all depends on it all comes back from where you're. I don't think the Kardashians are Romanian. What are they?
I thought they were
Not
Italian, to be
Macedonia.
honest with you.
What's that?
I thought they were Italian.
No, no, no. Now the
I don't follow
Kardashians,
that stuff, to be honest with you.
I got all right. Now I got to look that up. But in any event, but yeah, but just people from that region, you can be a lot of things. I know Arabs, Egyptians, whatever. They're sort of like brown skinned, but they're not quite. You can't quite put them in a particular bubble. So yeah, I could certainly see someone make
So
it
let me touch base on that
Armenian.
one
Thank
second.
you, Armenian.
So
Yeah.
the whole dark skin thing, and I think I mentioned this on the show before. Remember the Rock when he played Hercules, and that one how he looked, the look he had, the
Yeah.
dark beard, the dark skin, and
Right.
everything.
Right.
I don't want to say more like a brother like you, more it was like more like
Right.
the guy who had a nice tan, pretty much. This is the best way I
Right.
can
Right.
explain it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's how Greeks were back in the day.
Yeah. Well, I
And
think they call it like
I
olive colored
thank you, olive.
skin. Yeah.
So
Olive. Yeah.
I know Greeks that are darker than me, and they have a great tan. I'm like, I hate you. But that's how they were back then.
Yeah.
Like back in the ancient times, they were long beard, long hair, tanned, olive with
Right.
a nice gut because you didn't know what you were going to eat. Simple.
Right. Right. Now,
So that's how it
do
was.
you tan? Just side note, do you if you spend some day go to the beach and hang out in the sun, do you tan or do you burn? Are you
So the first one I always burn. The second one I tan really well. If I keep
okay?
up with it going to like a salon or something like that, yeah, I don't burn at all. But
Right.
I'm not cooking myself
So,
any of
and
those.
that's the difference. So your
Yeah.
olive complexion is such where you can get brown,
Yeah.
whereas some people, if you were like Irish or something like that, I mean they just burn. I mean it's just not they can't. Some people just can't tan because there's such you have enough melanin in your skin where you
Yep.
can kind of modulate a little bit. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I used to be outside all the time, as a
Right.
kid, and I used to work outside. I used to be outside.
Yeah.
Like being inside was like a privilege. Watch TV. I was, oh my god, I can relax finally.
Right.
And like trying to take the remote. Yeah. Grandma take a remote control. Like my soap opera's on. Sorry, kid. I'm like, we only had one TV. I'm like, and had the fans on, like no AC. Or like, you told me AC. It wasn't an
Right.
AC in Greece.
Right.
Only people who had money had AC.
Right. I hear
So
you. I hear
people who like I remember the remote, it was literally bigger than my phone. It was like out to this big, thick like this. I'm like, and
I
you put
hear
a
you.
case over it too. Because you
Yeah.
drop it. Oh my God. I'm the
Yeah,
end of the world.
and they were expensive to replace. You couldn't get one easily, for sure. You
Yeah.
can go. There was no Amazon back there to get it from. But okay, so we got about 30 minutes left in the show. So again, I talked to you earlier about, and this we definitely gonna based on this discussion, we can definitely do another show because I want to talk about the idea of a part two. So again, for my man who I had the point earlier, the question earlier,
Mhm.
Blaze, we may have to answer your question in part two. I didn't think we would necessarily get to a part two here, but this question may be in not next week's show is going to be the religious show. The show
I
after
think.
that, we're going to deal with the idea of social media because we're still building with Peter his return to America. What we want to deal with in an upcoming show is now when Peter goes to Greece now, or when he deals with people of Greece now, how is he perceived in terms of, I want to know specifically how his value set may have changed. Not just when he was a kid, it was just the fact that he was from America, not that he was doing necessarily anything that any other kid around his age was doing. But one thing I'm always asking of immigrant people who've been in the United States for a while, you got your education here, you have a family here. When you go home, even though you still speak the language and everything else, have your values changed? Have you become essentially Americanized? And I want to know what that experience is like. So in 2 weeks, we're probably going to have that show. I didn't think, this conversation would go on as long as it did, but again, I'm happy it is because this is what this is about. This is about having a conversation, and as you can see, it can go in different directions. So in that return show, and certainly in the latter years, and certainly bringing it up to today, we definitely want to deal with this with your question. So definitely be sure to raise the question again in a couple of weeks. How social media is regularly consumed here, and does it affect into the everyday lives of people in Greece? We definitely want to tackle that. But again, we're building a story here of how we got to the places that we're at. So give us a couple of weeks and we'll definitely come back. But if you have any other questions that you might want to ask based on this conversation, you can certainly still ask it in the time that we have left. But I want to dial in on, okay, so you're back. There's a Greek community. You feel welcome. Would you say that you felt much more welcome here from the Greeks here than you were when you were in Greece?
So
That
at
first
first,
round.
I would say I was not welcome anywhere when you first step in. Like you're a new guy. So I would say the friends I made are through my mom's friends.
Mhm.
So do you consider your mom's friends your friends? No, of course. You're gonna make your own.
Well, when you're new, yeah, sure, why
Yeah,
not? I mean, and you have that
they're
connection,
older
so it's
too.
not y
So
okay,
her my mom's best friend, her sons were way older than me. Her oldest
got it.
is already out of high school. Her second is probably 4 or 5 years older than me. He didn't want to hang out like a punk ass kid like myself at the
Mhm,
time.
right,
So I was started making friends other places through karate, for example. And like
mhm,
I was getting back into karate again. I was starting meeting my friends again. I remember coming back to the States and seeing some old faces, and I started to recognize faces like Ray Kazaka, like that's my instructor's son.
mhm,
I'm assuming Shin was his son, Ray was his father. But Shin, and like we just picked up like there.
mhm.
We're two different school districts and everything, and we just picked up. And at first words are going, man, you have an accent on you. I'm like, no, I don't. I used to get offended back then.
Mhm.
But when I got, when my eyes started twinkling to the girls, I'm like, oh, you have an accent. No, yes, I do. I changed that role really
So
bad.
you would accentuate the accent a little bit more to sound even
Of course, of course.
wow,
Yeah,
okay.
come on, dude. If you could do it, you would do it too. I don't hear anybody.
Yeah, but we're gonna get into I do wanna spend a little bit of
Yeah,
time. I
but
wanted to really devote a lot of the show to you again because of this
yeah.
experience, that you had on both ends of the earth, essentially, where you've had this sort of, this back and forth and being acclimated again. But, okay, so let's get past, high school, for example, because again, we dealt with a lot of that in the first show. Now as just an adult, a young adult, being a Greek immigrant still, do you at that time, did you still feel yourself as a Greek immigrant, or did you start feeling like you were a Greek American? Was there a time when you felt that, okay, so as far as your identity in terms of how you embrace, so when did those things start to kick in on this go around? You're back in America. When did you Greek American? When did that start to, um,
So when I first became an adult illegally, I again now I look back, and I had trauma I didn't know about. Didn't want to see a therapist and all that stuff.
mm,
So I didn't say I didn't use myself as a Greek. I consider myself as American at the time only. And I said I was Greek,
mm,
whatever, yeah, yeah. But because of all the trauma I went through, my grandmother, the way she was trying to raise me, because she raised me old school, man, she couldn't do that with me because I was with the technology. Again,
mhm,
we have that in common.
right.
My parents, say, my father says, go get this done now. I mean, it doesn't mean like, hey, hang on a second, I'm actually doing my homework. Like, I don't care about your homework. I say now.
Mm,
And then you had drop what you're doing. It was the old school mentality that kind of screwed me up a little bit because I didn't know
right,
any better.
right.
So as time went on, I'm learning, okay, this is not right. So at first, I didn't consider myself like anything. I was like, oh, there's a regular guy.
Right.
Now I look back, I even go now, you talk to me now, like I consider myself, like I said, a Greek American. I'm very proud of that Greek part.
All right. So at what point then you embraced being proud? So I'm just trying to, because again, you have this
About
experience. So
25, when I hit 25, around there.
and what happened at 25 when the Greek part you were able to comfortably say, yes, I'm proud to be Greek? What were some of the events or some of the happenings at that time? I just want to drive that point home. This part of your story, and then I can certainly close out with a little bit of discussion on my end. But I really want you to get to that point where comfortable in your Greekness, if that makes any sense.
I started discovering different things,
Okay.
learning about different things. And like at the time, I didn't like history. And slowly over the years, history started liking me. I'm like, and
Mm,
I'm learning about
okay.
my own culture more. I'm like, wait, 300? That's me. Oh, that's me too. I'm like, I learned things more. I always knew we had great, rich history, but in Greece, you are forced to learn it. But when you actually
You couldn't
want to learn
appreciate it.
it,
Yeah.
you respect it more and
Yeah.
appreciate it. And I started learning more about it. I'm like I'm watching the History Channel. I'm doing this. I'm watching all these different War II documents
Hmm.
and all this stuff. And like my mom started giving me stuff that was from my grandfather.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, and it started now. Everything started connecting together like a puzzle. And I didn't realize it. It just happened
Hmm.
around 25 and older. Now, if you ask me stuff about Greece, I can tell you anything you want about the history. Dates,
Right.
I'm horrible. Don't ask me for dates. Who cares about
Right.
dates?
Right. Right.
But I can
But
tell you,
the broad strokes.
yeah.
Right.
And it was just fascinating to me. I was started getting fascinated. And
Hmm.
that's where when I started talking to one of my buddies, not Greek, and he goes to me, we're talking about he was a military guy. We're talking about it. And he was one of my first students. He goes, dude, there's your goddamn problem. What? I go to him. You consider you're American. You're wrong. I'm not American either. I'm an Irish, Italian American. You're a Greek. You're a purebred. I looked at him. What
Mm,
am I, a goddamn dog here? And I'm
mm,
like, a purebred. And he goes, I'm not trying to say that, dude. Think about it. How many people can sit there and say, I'm Greek and only Greek? Most people are Greek, Italian, mixed with the yada yada yada. Or
mhm,
people say they're mutts because they're mixed with 100. How many people can say they're purebred, raised and born, and then start connecting and everything?
mhm,
It took me a while. When I realized
yeah,
it, like, oh, it's something to be proud of. Like, and he go, he then he was deep in me about my own culture. We're like, dude, you guys were one of the first cultures out there. Without
mhm,
your culture, we didn't have this, we didn't have that, we have that. I'm like, you need to wake up. I'm like, and I realized it. Okay, I think part of it too was because the Greek culture, like we're gonna talk about this next week more with the religion part. I always struggled with it because how many people become vegan for a month for their religion? How many people do this and that for their religion?
mhm,
And I see other people just we're simple. I just get meat once a week. That's it. I have
mhm,
people only go do this and do that. They
mhm,
only break little things like I have to sacrifice all this stuff just to be a Christian Orthodox.
mhm,
And I felt like I was getting pushed away from my own culture at one point. Again, I
mhm,
was hanging out with wrong crowds too.
mhm.
And now I look back like, yeah, I was hanging out with the wrong crowds, but those wrong crowds made me the man I am today.
Right,
Learn my own lessons from that, if that makes sense.
right. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it's a great segue that you're talking about with the idea of you learning more about your culture, your friend directing you to have a better understanding of
Yeah.
yourself. This is, in fact, what ADOS Americans, this is oftentimes why we push so hard for us to learn more about ourselves so that we can have a better sense of pride in our position as Americans and also what we've contributed to the world. Because again, we get a lot of flack from some of our African brothers and sisters or from those from other ethnic areas like from the Caribbean or what have you, that African Americans or ADOS don't have any culture. And ADOS, what I mean by that is an American descendant of slavery. That is a very unique ethnic group that defines not only what we look like, but it also defines our history and our story in the United States. And just before I go any further, let me see if I can share something here. just to kind of give you an idea of the perspective that we come from when we talk about our experiences, and why you may see in the barbershops and some of the spaces that we occupy, why some of the why is it that some of the things that we see. So let me see if I can get this to share. I think I got it. Let me see if I can get this guy to show up. Okay. So you were talking, when your friend was talking about what does it mean, or don't you see the value in being pure Greek?
Mhm.
One thing you have to understand about ADOS, African Americans, is that we are not pure anything. If you look at, this is my ancestry test that I took back in 2019. And my ancestry is made up of all of this, from mostly from Western Africa. That's where most slaves came from. But you see areas of Europe that are also make up my DNA. Most African Americans, most ADOS Americans, were on average anywhere from 12 to 20% of something that is not of African origin. And where our story starts is actually in the United States. So if you look at the United States, in that area in the South, again, most of my kin folks are from the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Panhandle, or whatever. That's where a lot of the immigrants went. There were the transatlantic slave trade. There were 4 million slaves that were brought total from West Africa to the Western Hemisphere. 3 million of them went to South America. 300,000 of them went to the United States. And so at that time, we weren't, whatever tribes that we came from, whatever ethnic heritage or pride that we may have had at the time, a lot of that was taken away from us. And so we weren't considered. So the idea of being Negro or Black, that was just a generic term that everybody used to describe us. So again, it didn't matter if we were from Nigeria or what have you. So this is kind of where a lot of our story starts. Just see if I can go and advance this screen and just kind of give you a further breakdown. Okay, so again, through further DNA testing, you see here, not only in the, again, a lot of my ancestry has been fleshed out to a little bit further north into the Virginia area, but still mostly in the American South, where a lot of our stories began. But really what I want to get to is this first one here. Now, when I first had my DNA test taken, so you talk about being Greek, this is all of me. Okay, so, and this has also changed over time. And I'll show those slides a little bit later as well. So this is, so all these different peoples. So if I was going to try to go back home, I don't know where home is. Home for me is Southern Georgia. If I was going to try to find my home on this map, for most African Americans, we're like, well, where are we going? Because we got all of this that makes up our ancestry from us, the people who enslaved us, which is, you have the Ireland, Scotland part of it, the English, the Sweden, the Germanic, the French part of it. So all of that, that wasn't necessarily by our own design or by chance. So initially when this came out, they told me I was 37% from Benin Togo area, which is West Africa, 28% from the Congo, and I was only 7% Nigerian. But what they've done over time, this has been revamped in subsequent readings, because what they also understand is that populations may move and migrate from one area to the other. So because my DNA was found in Benin Togo, it didn't mean that I was of those peoples. And so there's been some depth, there's been some refinement of this in the years since. So if you see here in this next one, actually, I'm going to go to this one first, because this is one I got excited about. So for Black David and for Ekene, I was actually feeling myself for a minute. So after they did a revision, I got excited, and I was about to come up on some of you guys, and I was about to do this, meaning that I was going to take my almost 50% of Nigerian back. I wanted my claim, just like Killmonger came back to Wakanda and wanted his claim of the throne. I was coming back, feeling myself a little bit, saying, "Oh, I'm essentially half Nigerian." So I was going around my brother-in-law, who's Nigeria. He's Igbo. I was going up to him and saying, "Yo, what's up, Oga?" That means brother in the language there. So I was kind of feeling myself. Yeah, I'm with my Nigerian partners here. But again, So some of the numbers changed. My Ireland Scotland connection went up 11%. I still had some English ancestry, but again, a mix of different peoples. So again, so what home am I going to be returning back to? I'm going, so because it's so blended. Then there was another revision that dropped my percentage down from Nigeria. So I was a little bit disappointed by that. Again, it's still mixed up because again, they keep refining the numbers, and they'll send me a notice anytime my DNA profile is changed. So now they're saying I'm only 38% Nigerian, 18% Cameroon Bantu peoples, 13% Benin Togo. And then the last one that I got, let me see if I can go to this one. They dropped me down even further. So I think Black David has something to do with this because now I'm only 20. They say I'm only 20% Nigerian. First, you said I was 7% Nigerian. Then my ethnicity went up to where I was half Nigerian. And guys like Ekene and Black David plotted against me and said that no, we have to strike this guy down because he's feeling himself a little bit. I was ready to claim my throne in Nigeria, and they said no. So they bumped me down to 20% Nigerian, 20%, 25% Cameroonian, and then all the way down the line. But again, for most African Americans, if you drop down to the lower end, again, early South Carolina African Americans, Georgia, coastal plain, and Central Florida African Americans. So again, this is where my people came from. They didn't go to the Caribbean. You have like Jamaicans and Haitians and whatnot. We came straight from Africa, and we came straight here. And so our identity, what we've been trying to formulate, and what we've been trying to share here, has been this this idea of who we are and where we've been. And I'm gonna start sharing now because Andre Terry was just saying that there was no sound. But basically, what I was showing there in those slides, if you weren't able to hear the audio there, what I was showing was as a contrast to me, the difference between me and grooming. Grooming is fully Greek, or I don't know. Have you ever considered taking a DNA test? You just assumed you agree.
Actually, I was about to ask you a couple questions on that because I have. So my cousin has taken one, and he didn't come back 100% Greek. He came like Polish and some other things, and it makes me very, very, very nervous just even thinking about taking one because I'll explain to you why. Because now that I am the ghost of Sparta, the sport in me, the Greek 100%. If I find I'm not Greek, it's gonna destroy me. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, because that's how much I love it. Because if something is during your brain as a child, you're Greek, you're proud Greek, you're a proud Greek. Yeah. For 38 years of your life, and all of a sudden you find out you're not 100% Greek. You don't even have a drop of Greek in you.
Well, we're not saying drop a Greek. If you took that DNA test and you're like 51%, you're not taking the victory lap still. I would take the victory lap. Like I said, I was 40 at one point. I was deemed 49% Nigerian, and I was claiming mine. Like I said, that's why I think the Nigerians plotted against me in that regard. I'm still investigating that one
because the numbers keep changing. Why are they keep changing? I don't understand that.
Because again, as you find populations move. So when they were initially telling me that I was 38% from Benin, Togo, they found the DNA there. But again, the people there could have been people who migrated to that area in Benin, Togo. They might have been Nigerians who moved because we took all these peoples. They're all from West Africa. Most of the transatlantic slave trade, it all started in West Africa. So just like anything else, populations move. And so you might have been just a settler, an immigrant, so to speak, just like you were an immigrant going both to Greece and coming back. You guys might have just been settlers in that area of the region. And so through further refinement, they were able to say, well, look, these weren't Benin Togo people. These were Nigerian people who were in Benin Togo. And so, again, as they come up with further refinement, you see those changes to it. But I'm saying all this to say that for us, the struggle for most ADOS, and this is a term that I used to use African American or Black American exclusively. I started using ADOS because obviously since the 60s, you've had other Black ethnic populations that have become a part of the U.S. population. So again, in the 60s, you had a lot of immigration of people from the Caribbean, for example, and from Africa. So now these are second and third generation people that are here in Africa, in America from these places. So the question is, are they not African American because they've lived the African American experience? But when we say ADOS, we're talking about those who go all the way back before America was America. My latest DNA test was saying that the earliest evidence for me was in 1745, where they found a lot of my ancestral DNA. So this is before America became a country in 1776. So we were here. So most ADOS, we define ourselves as those people brought to America between 1619, when the initial people came, to 1865. If you fit in that category where you came straight from the boats to the shores, you're part of the ADOS, the 300,000 that came to America in that time space. And like I said, all the vestiges of like you being Greek or your language or your culture or whatever, a lot of that stuff was stripped away. So the Black identity was formed over all that time, especially, and it really came to a head in the 60s, when people were saying, like, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. When James Brown was coming out, and Black and proud became a term that became something that united a lot of us, because we were saying to ourselves, like, look, we don't know. Like I said, I don't have a home to go back to. I don't have a village. If you try to trace back where it is, I'm all over the place. I can go to Ireland and probably find some ancestors of mine if I wanted to. So we had to form an identity, and we had to know about our history, how we got here, in order for us to build that sense of pride that we have as being Black, as being African American, or ADOS, which is the newest term that's come out. So that is something that had to be forged. You, like you said, coming from a people that's thousands of years old, you're one of the oldest civilizations ever, and for the most part, it's ethnically pure. Over that course of time, we, for us, we had to build something. We had to formulate it as such. So again, so those are the differences, not only just between me and you as Greek, but even myself and Black David. For example, we have a different path. We have a different story that defines us, and so we've had to again build an identity for ourselves in this space. And so for us, so me going back home, that's a question that I can ask. But David, he could go back to Nigeria now. He could probably go back to his town, his locals, where his family is, where his relatives are. I can't have that experience. Or I would have to do a lot more
No,
research
no,
or a
yeah, it
lot
makes sense.
more digging in order to find it. But Black David, it would be at least easier for him than it would for me.
And let
But
me
Black
answer
David, if you
that,
want to chime in on that last point.
because when you mentioned the numbers on Nigeria, I found out something that not only me, a few other Nigerians just found out recently, because did a lot of research that are digging in deep about the African history. We all know that the slave trade came from Ghana. That's correct, right?
Well, it's all over, like all those
So,
countries,
I
Benin,
know, but
Togo,
they mentioned
Nigeria, all,
they
yeah,
mentioned the main port came from Ghana. What we did not
right.
know that our country was never what a country, was also a business hub for slavery as well of resources.
Hmm.
So when they were found out recently, last year, I was taken aback because another Nigerian will reported on TikTok. It said, "Who would have known that our country have a dark history?" Then nobody knew about it, because you look at our country demographic based on resources. We have all type of mineral resources also, but we're also a hub. The reason why your number changed, they're looking at what the people who are original from that particular region,
Hmm.
what the tribe of the region, because they didn't go over the at what tribe, either Yoruba, the Igbo, the Hausa, whatsoever. There's a
Right.
lot that's going on. I'm part of the Yoruba tribe, aka part of the Igbo tribe,
Hmm.
with more like a bit in that particular region. But as the number keep changing, they're trying to find out who are the original people that live in that particular land mass
Right.
in that area.
Right.
Other
Right.
than that, Nigeria was known to be a business hub for the trading,
Right.
for all the resources, as well as the slaves that
Yeah.
ultimately end up going to Ghana instead. And that's why I want to make sure, in case you or me want to do a deep research about that particular dark history, that's
Hmm.
something that was not put in the books. I never
Right.
knew about that history when I went to school out there. So that's why I'm trying
Hmm.
to put that out there. So in case you want to do your own research later on, look deep into that why that number keep going up and down about Nigeria, then you can figure out what tribe they're related to.
Yeah.
Because we have a feature of an Igbo man. I was trying to keep that for myself for a while, but I might be
See, I
wrong.
told you, you were trying to steal. You were trying to steal my Igbo. Look,
But the thing is, I found out myself, so I was trying to dig in and see where I can find that dark history because every country have its own dark history that people want to talk about. So that's a very interesting topic you brought up. So either you or me want to dig into that one. It's up to you guys.
sure.
I was still want to find out more about my country and why it's a dark history, why they try to hide it from history
Right,
books.
right.
So that's kind of what I add to the conversation. Other than that,
Now,
I get
I appreciate you jumping on. And
no.
again, just to see this.
I want you guys to have that one to use on. So maybe on the next episode, maybe another series when you find
Oh
out
yeah,
more about that, you can
yeah.
talk more.
We can definitely flesh that out, and we would love to have you a part of that conversation as well because I think you certainly
It's
bring
not a
a
problem.
certain
Not a
perspective to
problem.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
I think we
appreciate
should
you
have
jumping
like
on.
David actually do an episode with him and ask him questions for a
Oh
change.
yeah. Well, if we can now, I don't know if we can pull it off without the furniture flying, but him and Ekene on the same show, that might be too much. I can deal with
No, no,
Ekene by
Let's
no,
do
himself.
separate.
no.
Ekene
I
is a
can deal with
No,
full.
like David by
Ekene is
himself.
a history buff.
Having these,
He understands the history between Africa and Europe and Africa and America.
Mhm.
What transpired, and
Yeah,
sometimes I pick his brain to get more clarity because I know a limit to our history, but we just start finding more and more that have been hidden that have never been put into the books, and there's a reason why behind it.
mm,
This is
right,
why
right.
when people trying to find their identity, find who they really are. I hope, Gumi, I believe you agree. Don't be scared. But imagine if I took a DNA test and I found out my tribe was a part of that particular land, be part of another land. Imagine how we feel.
Yeah.
This is
How
going on
much
in
would it
Africa
cost
right now.
actually? I was never. That's another
It's
question I
100
have.
is well, it's especially during holiday time, it's like $100. Now,
Mhm.
again, they have deeper tests. Like if you want, like the one I took is a general test. If you want one that's specifically for maternal, like your mother's ancestry or your father's, I think those go a bit more. Those are like $300-400 if you want those specific tests. But if you just want like just a general sample of what makes you, who you are, yeah, like $100 usually. You do a swab or a saliva, you put it in, you send it in, and then they post they send you an email when your results are posted. And there's like multiple companies. Initially, when this stuff really got into vogue like 10 years ago, um there was like a lot of the bodies didn't have as many folks, so again they were pretty expensive tests. And again, that still doesn't help you as much as far as when you got to do the research. So if you want to like really dig in and find out like who's your slave ancestors were, and the records, and then if you want to really trace it back, it can cost you a lot of money if you want to do that kind of deep dive.
But the point
But
of bank records, the people who have the record of all the slaves, and
yeah,
church
I
probably
mean,
have that
some people,
information.
it's a for a lot of people it's a start. It's just a start for you to start, at least what direction to go in. And like I said, in the slide that I showed, you said my people's that southern Georgia, Florida, North South Carolina, that's where my origin really starts. It doesn't start in the Caribbean. It didn't start in the now. In fact, most African Americans don't. I know Henry Louis Gates Jr. He had talked about that because a lot of African Americans claim that they have, Native American ancestry, but he came back and said less than, most of us has less than 2% African American, Native American ancestry. Most of it is European because again, we were owned and enslaved by Europeans. So if you go back and watch any documentaries by Henry Louis Gates Jr., who was one of the early pioneers in this genetic testing, he talks about that a lot of African Americans, overestimate the amount of Native Americans. Not to say that we don't, but it's a lot less than we claim to be. Like a lot of us say we're 1/4 Native or half Native American, but for most of us, no, most of that is European by background. But then one more question I just want to address, and I know we're getting to the end of the show.
I'll
Lost in
step back down.
translations said, "What determines race, DNA or location?" I would say it's neither, because race is a European concept that was used in order to justify their abuse or behavior towards us. So again, this is if you look up a link, go to Wikipedia, and I know Wikipedia isn't always the most accurate. You can look up a term, look up scientific racism, and it gives you a bibliography of the early people who formed race theory. So there's a difference between there's phenotypes, right? There's like the impression that we have, like, Peter's his skin complexion versus mine. The shape of his nose is very different from mine. I mean, that's definitely a very Greek thing. We are very different in that. That's called a phenotype. Phenotypes are observable differences that you can see in people. When I had hair, my hair texture was going to be very different than Peter's. So that you can certainly label and identify, but where race took it was not only in terms of how we look different, but also our level of intelligence and our behaviors and such. And so when they started to classify these racial classes, they started to attribute things to people that went beyond just what we look like, but who we were and what we were capable of doing. So I wouldn't, use either one of those terms to classify race. In fact, I wish we got away from the term race. I'm much more comfortable with ethnicity and phenotype, because again, that gets more into specifically who we are as people. And just as I'm as different as from Peter, I'm just as different from Black David. And and certainly the conversation, I think, needs to get a lot more nuanced when we talk about Black or white conversations. Again, the gray area is certainly something that we want to delve into so that we can all have a better understanding and respect from where we come from.
I
But
agree, actually.
I
I
would
agree
definitely
100%.
rather use ethnicity, because ethnicity includes your features, it includes your location, it includes your history, it includes your culture. So again, that's why, even though I may look, some people may say I look closer to Black David, I'm actually kind of in the middle between Peter and Black David. I'm kind of like the caramel in the middle here. But that makeup, in fact, I did a presentation on this some time back. I used this acronym called PRIA, which is phenotype, um, experience, recognition, identity, and advocacy. PRIA. That really makes up what a Black person is. Because again, none of us can go home, especially if you're an American. You can't go, you don't know what home you're going back to. But we had to form and forge an identity here in the United States. And so again, my history started here, you know, and that's what my ancestors built, my grandparents and the ones that came before them. We helped to build and forge the United States. I can't speak for my Nigerian experience, but I know what my people built here. So this is the identity that a lot more Black Americans or whatever, or ADOS, or however you want to term it, this is what we're trying to do. Just as Peter had to come to a recognition and a pride in who he was, for the longest time, you had other Black ethnic groups said that Black Americans had no culture, or that we had nothing. What did we contribute? And our contribution has been to America. We are Americans. Besides Native Americans, we are the most original of Americans, because it was them. In fact, they were enslaved first. They were called indentured servants, but they couldn't handle the conditions. So then that's when they started bringing us in mass. So we are as much Americans than any other ethnic group, whether it be Greek American or Italians or Polish or English or anything that came here. So so one of the things that I've tried to do in these spaces, and just in talking, and even with my daughters, because they really had a hard time when they went to college, because you would think going to college, especially in Newark, New Jersey, which is an urban area, most of the Black kids on campus were children of immigrants, Nigerian or West African immigrants. And they felt very isolated being there, because they're cool with you in the spaces where it's public. Say, yeah, we're Black here. But when you get into the private areas, then they become very ethnic. No, we're Nigerian, we're this, we're that, we're Ghanaians, we're whatever. And my daughters felt just as uncomfortable as if they would have went to a white person's, an Italian or a Polish person, because they had because they made them feel different. They spoke, sometimes you get into a thing, and it's sometimes it's not always malicious, but you just start speaking another language. So I know, like Peter, like, have you had friends there? Sometimes you have to watch it. You get around some of your Greek friends, you just start speaking Greek, even though you might have a non-speaking Greek person there.
Actually, I have a rule against that. My
Yeah,
rule
but
is
some people, yeah.
my rule. I
Go
don't
ahead.
speak Greek in front of my friends who are non-Greek. That's why I
Right.
get again. I might offend somebody saying this, but I have a lot of Spanish friend who starts babbling Spanish. I go, dude, I'm right here. Like you
Yeah,
can see,
it's a
say it.
very but exactly. So the same thing would happen with the Nigerian, the West Africans. They would start doing the same thing. Again, I'm not going to assign malicious intent to it, but they felt very isolated. So what I
I
had to
do
build
understand
for
why
them,
too.
I had to build for them a sense of, hey, be proud of who you are. Just as you had to come to a knowledge and understanding, I had to make sure that my kids had a knowledge of understanding of who they were as African Americans, as Black Americans, as ADOS Americans. And that is your history. That is Martin Luther King. That's Malcolm X. That's, all those people. That's Muhammad Ali. That's all the people that you want to, go. But this is, Black History Month. All the people that contributed to America being the way it is. That is the history that you cling on to. That is what you're proud of as an ADOS American. So for us, it's a very different story for us. We are not immigrants. That's another thing, because as an immigrant, again, in your case, Peter, your parents chose to come to the United States. And
Mhm.
they also chose, for you being their child, they chose the future they wanted for you. They sent you to Greece for some time, and then they sent for you, or they brought you home, or brought you to the United States for a time. That's a decision. Most ADOS Americans, the decision was made for us. We didn't choose to say, let's leave our tribes and cultures and let's just come over here. No, we were sold into slavery and brought here. And I'm
So you were
not
kidnapped
bringing
out of
that
your homes.
right. So, and I'm not bringing that up. I'm just stating history. I'm not.
Facts.
I'm not angry at that. I'm not trying to, rile up with. But I'm just, so for us, when people say about the America, oh, we're a nation of immigrants,
We are.
that's offensive to some of us because we're not immigrants, and neither are the Native Americans. They're not immigrants either. So the idea. So for us, we want the narrative nuanced. Yes, we are a nation of immigrants and of slaves and of the native peoples and tribes that were here thousands of years before Western settlers from Europe came to the States.
Let me ask you a
And
question
so,
really fast
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Now, when people say, let's say myself or other people, or let's say Dominicans or I don't know, Italians, whatever, say my country, meaning
hmm
their homeland, Greece, for example, in my case,
hmm
do you get offended when people say that, or how do you feel when people
not
say
at
that?
all, not at all. Now, what happened for I know for me particularly, and a lot of guys that I was with. Now, again, you talk about coming of age. There's a time that we went through. Up until I went to college, I was
Mhm.
just an American. Like I didn't know anything. I didn't know a lot about Black history, certainly not African American history. I don't know a lot about Africa except what was shown on TV. So remember those old 1930s Tarzan movies, and
Mhm.
Black people were in jungles and stuff like that, and just all kinds of, the probably that's what I came to college with. And when I started in college, there was again a movement to learn more about your history. In college, you can take courses on African American history that, apparently in certain areas of the country now, they're trying to take Black history out of schools and just say, hey, it's too dark or whatever. We don't talk about slavery. We don't talk about that stuff. So they're trying to remove it from schools. But in college, you took courses on African American history or the Black experience, and you started learning about things. Now, back then, a lot of the guys, there was a movement called Pan-Africanism, where a lot of folks did not want to identify themselves as American. They said you can't be an American unless you get all the rights and treatment as an American. And for a lot of us, the fact that we didn't feel like we were being treated fairly in America, we started calling ourselves Africans. Africa is our native home. But again, Africa is a continent. You know what I mean? It's not a country. It's not a reason. It's a continent. So we were saying, well, we're Africans for the longest time. But in the last few years, the narrative has changed to such an extent where it
Mhm.
says, no, we're Americans, because where history really started for us, for all instance, for the last 400 years, has been the United States. And it's good that we can go back to Africa and learn, about that. And we certainly, embrace that, since most of us do come from there. At least our DNA is showing that. But we can take pride in what we've done here. So really, the social construct, the social engineering that a lot of us have had to go through, being stripped of everything that we knew coming from a country to having to formulate an identity in this country has been the journey that we've been on, and that we're still trying to flesh out. That's why a lot of times you'll hear beefs with people about, hey, what should we be calling ourselves? Should we call ourselves Black, African American, African? What do we? A lot of that is still going on. I think for me, I think it's mostly settled in terms of how I identify and how I encourage people to identify, because I think it's the most embracing and it's the most inclusive of the narrative that has been our experience in the United States. But no, for a person to say, I'm from Jamaica, I'm from Haiti, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Ghana, I'm from Germany, wherever you come from, I applaud you for that. I salute you for that, which you've been able to, that you can go back to that. But for us, for a lot of us, we are the original Americans. And so the United States would not be the country that it is without us. And that's why when people talk about reparations, they're talking about for that 246 years in which we were enslaved, in the 90 years of Jim Crow, that limited opportunity for us. That is why the topic comes up, because other ethnic groups, the Japanese and other ethnic groups, have been paid back for their internments or whatnot. We had 246 years of it. And that is why the issue comes up, that what does America owe us for all of that free labor that helped to build the nation?
That is a good
And
point.
that's the discussion in terms of, now the discussion is how we should do it. Should it be through education, maybe give college scholarships, forgive student loans? How we go about it is a discussion, an internal discussion, as well as one that's being held even in the halls of Congress in terms of how to address the issue. Some people are going to the other side saying, we should just forget all this stuff altogether and just call ourselves American and just wipe the slate clean and then go forward. But you got to understand, in terms of wealth is built generationally. So the fact that we never had wealth to build is an issue why the issue of reparations oftentimes comes up. And so this is our narrative that we try to educate people on. At least I've tried to educate people, both personally to me and as well as in these spaces on. But these are this is where we are. So again, where my home is, if I really want to go home, Southern Georgia, Bainbridge, Georgia, Mayhawk, Georgia, Seminole County, Georgia, Tallahassee, Alabama, Mississippi. That is my home. That's my folk. That's my kinfolk. That's my roots. And those people had to endure a lot in order for me to be able to be in this space at this time, in this podcast, talking to my brother to my left about how we got here. And we're a lot more similar than different. We're both nerds. We're both Beagle parents.
Amen.
Again, shout out to Trey Ferg again for Trey from that show last week. Talk about the dogs. We both own Beagles, and so we're finding commonality. Okay, so again, my ethnicity does not trump my humanity. I can have a relationship with him, and he can have one with me, and we could just be open and talk, and not be offended by one another's experience, but wanting to learn from it. And so, again, that's one of the discussions that we're talking about. If they give us money, we'll just give it through consumerism. And that's a fair point. But again, so how do you fix or how do you repair wrong? That is the internal discussion, what we're having. So again, but nevertheless, the discussion is being had. And but the purpose of this show, again, is not to talk about how bad we had it, but what can we learn from one another so we have great understanding? We know each other. So it's like, hey, I'm just Paul to you. But when you see another ADOS, or when I meet another Greek American person, that hopefully you're giving me some perspective, that when I talk to that person, I have a greater feel for their humanity from having these conversations with you. And that's why I appreciate you reaching out to me saying, hey, can we do this show? Let's have this series of shows, unpacking. But at the end of the day, we're both human beings.
And I think that's where people forget sometimes.
Yeah.
Forget to, be kind to each other. Doesn't matter what you see. because I see a brother.
Mhm.
I see a person. Because I told you in another show, I'll tell you, I don't see black and white, green, orange,
Mhm.
yellow, whatever color you are. I don't care
Mhm.
about that stuff. I care
Mhm.
what's in here.
Mhm.
That's me personally, and
Absolutely.
we have disagreements on that too. I know, not disagreement.
Well,
We see
it's not a big one. It's just is this for me? Okay, so we got to go forward. All right, so Trey 1 and Trey 2. All right, so we'll try to keep the hashtags when we're discussing certain people. And I don't think we're necessarily that far away from from each other on that. Again,
I don't think so
obviously
either.
the character of the person obviously matters.
Of
But when
course.
you say I don't see color, it's like you've been to a rose garden or you've been to a botanical garden, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful there.
Yeah.
There's so many different colors there. What I'm trying to get to in life, I want to appreciate all colors. Yes, I do see color. And the color is beautiful. I see your olive complexion and it's beautiful. I see my brother Black David. His complexion is way darker than mine and it's beautiful. And there's a history and everyone has a story, everyone has a history, everybody has a journey that they're on. And everybody deserves a space in order to share their stories. And that's in my life at this point, that's what I want to get to. But at the end of the day, the story is what I think unites us, overcoming what we've had to overcome, overcoming bullying, overcome being outcasts,
Mm-hmm.
taking care of our parents. Both me and Peter, we got moms that are in their old age and are dealing with some things. I won't go into specifics. That's up to him if he wants to share that. But our parents are dealing with some stuff. We both lost our fathers at some point in time.
My father's still around, dude.
What's that?
My father's still alive.
I'm sorry.
No, he's in nursing home.
I sincerely apologize for that.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
No, but my mom,
But
I'd be happy to share it. My mom has stage 3 colon cancer. She's fighting it right now, and
right.
she beat it once. She will beat it again. But it's
Amen.
rough. It's rough.
Yeah, for sure. But again, we're both caretakers for our parents. That's the point I was trying to say.
No, I know.
You know, we're the ones who handle that. Again, that's the gray area. So again, it doesn't matter where you come from. Again, life is going to deal with us at some point in time because of our humanity. If our ethnicities can give us a certain insight into how we deal with the challenges that we have to overcome, great. Let's share them. Let's have the conversation. That's why this table exists. So again, so we invite anyone. If you're Nigerian, if you're Japanese, if you're Italian, if you're whatever, Haitian, whatever, we like to know about your stories from the purviews that you come from. I'm definitely looking forward to this conversation next week when we talk to Peter's church father about the Greek religious experience, because like I said, I've never heard of it really. I mean, I know about Greek thoughts, but what that is like to be over an ethnic, to have essentially a church over an entire country. I mean, that's a conversation I want to know more about. I want to know what's that like and the challenges there, and the fact that you have people in Greece, and what's it like being Greek American, and the differences that you may see in terms of how to shepherd and pastor churches and communities like that. So I'm excited about where this channel can grow, where this particular show can grow. Again, I want this to be a safe place where we can have these conversations, and I'm just here to learn, and I just want to be a bridge that we're much more closer than we are different. So I think I spoke too long already. I think that's my closing thought. We're already over time, but that's my closing thought and everything else. So Peter, if you want to close us out,
Yeah, I have one comment to
you
make.
can do so.
You probably didn't realize I'm colorblind, did you?
No, I did not know that. What, physically? You have what? You have the eye condition that by
No, I mix up colors. That's what colorblind means. 95% men actually have it, and most don't know they have it. You probably have it, you don't even realize it, to be honest with you.
right.
But most of them have it. I'm just giving you this little fun fact.
Okay.
But seriously, on a serious note, this is a platform for us to learn and grow. By growing is education. That's how I always looked at it.
Right.
It's only take time. If you're, I don't care who you are. If you want to come up, come up. We're going to have another Q&A. I expect that most of you come up this time because I was a little disappointed last time. A lot of you guys didn't come up. But this time, I expect you guys to come up. Open challenge. Ask me any question. Ask Paul any questions. I'll be happy to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
So except that, that's all I have. So next week, obviously, Father Costantino is going to be here. He's a great guy. He has some pretty good jokes, actually, believe it or not. And I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
So definitely. Anything else, Paul?
No, that's I think that's a wrap here. So again, I am Mr. Bennett.
Yep.
He is Grooming and Reviews, aka the Ghost of Sparta, aka Panagiotis.
Yeah. Let me plug one last thing really fast before we go.
Yes, sir.
Wednesday, we're having the education panel on my channel. Whoever would like to come in, please let me know. Throw me an email. I'll be happy to throw you the links. Except that, that's all I have. So,
all right. This
Stay
has been
fresh
the
on my
gray
side.
area. This has been the gray area. Great. That again, salute to the chat. Thank you, Lady Navoa, for keeping the chat on fire as always. We really appreciate you.
Lady Navoa, thank you for the donation. Appreciate it so much.
Same here. She dropped me one also. Appreciate you supporting us. And but for everyone else, again, enjoy your week, your work week. Be safe, and we'll see you next time on the gray area. You guys take care. Have a great night.
Subscribe now.